Chapter 265. When the number of disciples reached 1,000, a sect mission would appear and be linked to the mission board. There were 3 benefits to this. First, if the number of disciples reached a certain number, the sect could be upgraded. Second, disciples could obtain achievement points from completing missions and upgrade the sect. Thirdly, by completing the sect's missions, one would be able to earn contribution points. By completing 1,000 achievement points, one would be able to obtain 1,000 contribution points. At that moment, sect leader Jun felt that he was going to become rich again and could sit back and relax. The 3rd sect mission appeared. 1-star missions were rare, and most of them were 2-star missions. There were even 4-star missions. The disciples who entered the sect earlier were stronger and would choose 2-star or 3-star missions. As for 1-star missions, they were left for the junior brothers who just entered the sect. Jun Changshao was very pleased. He wanted to build a strong sect, but at the same time, he wanted to build a sect with love, where the disciples could help each other and not fight against each other all day for their own selfish desires. The 4-star missions were a little difficult. Most of them were to kill high-level beasts. They either needed enough manpower or only inner sect disciples to do it. Sect leader Li Qingyang said, "We don't have enough sculpting rooms again." There were more than 400 new disciples. If they wanted to become stronger, they needed to consume pills and cultivate techniques. Their muscles were also indispensable. Ding! Host spent 400 contribution points and obtained 20 muscle sculpting rooms. They have been transferred to the interspatial ring. Ding! Sect contribution points, 10210000. Jun Changshao directly sold 20 sets and placed them in the training rooms. This way, the number of sculpting rooms increased to 40. These sculpting rooms still couldn't support hundreds of people, but there was no other way. After all, the contribution points were limited. He could only let them sculpt their bodies in batches. The new disciples definitely had a lot of benefits. Beginner healing pills and body sculpting pills had to be given to each disciple. Meridian opening pills and chi revolving pills would also be given out according to their level. In terms of martial techniques, Jun Changshao didn't give them out one by one. Instead, he chose a room in the outer courtyard and named it the Technique Pavilion. He placed all the martial techniques he bought in the store inside. The disciples could choose whatever they wanted to learn. Under normal circumstances, no matter if it was a sect, family, or school, many of the main characters' pretentious journey started from the Technique Pavilion. In Iron Bone, there was no need to fight for the right to enter. There was also no need to be mocked by the gatekeeper elders. They could enter and learn as they wished. This is amazing. After consuming the body sculpting pill, Song Xianzhou could feel that his physical body and strength had improved to different degrees. He was so excited that his hands were trembling. As a genius, he naturally understood that the transformation of his body would have a profound impact on his future martial path. When he cultivated Yi Jin Jing, rupturing fist, and other mental cultivation techniques, the shock in his heart became even more intense. At that moment, Song Xianzhou understood that the rise of Iron Bone was not a coincidence. Because he had joined the sect, there was no need to hide some things, so Li Qingyang told him about the healing pill. After learning that the pills he consumed in the AI clan were actually concocted by the sect master, Song Xianzhou came to the main hall and knelt before Jun Changshao. Paralyzed on the bed, he was completely disheartened. Now that he was able to stand up again and continue practicing martial arts, he was like a second parent. Kneeling and kowtowing was a matter of course. Jun Changshao waved his hand and stopped the disciple from bowing. He said, "If you want to repay me, then work hard to become stronger and bring glory to the sect." Song Xianzhou said with a determined gaze, "Disciple Song Xianzhou is willing to go through fire and water for Iron Bone sect." Not only was this #1 genius of Songyang City shocked. Those disciples who had just joined the sect were also deeply shocked after receiving all kinds of martial arts resources. They regretted that they didn't join the Iron Bones sect earlier and wasted their time. Of course. When they had just joined, they would definitely be taken care of by their senior brothers, especially by senior brother Li Fei's happy football. But also pain and happiness. As long as they could become stronger faster in the sect, it was okay even if they were kicked in the face every day. The Drizzle Hall and the Medicine Hall were also short of manpower. Sect Master Jun chose many new disciples and divided them into 2 halls to replenish the fresh blood. The disciples started to accept missions from the mission pavilion one after another. They either did them alone or in groups. In the following period of time, Jun Changshao would often hear the sound of the sect's missions being completed. His achievement and contribution points also continued to rise. To upgrade to level 4, he needed 1,000 achievement points. To upgrade the sect's level, some of the new disciples needed to break through to level 12 Meridian Opening. Both required some time. No rush, no rush. He should be able to do it all in 1 or 2 months. Jun Changshao temporarily handed over the sect's affairs to Li Luoqiu and began to cultivate without paying attention to outside matters. There were still 7 or 8 months before the 1-year agreement with the Sacred Spring sect. He had to hurry up and improve. It would be best if he could break through to the peak of Martial Master or Wuzong. The tragedy was, after a month, he had entered the 7th rank from the 6th rank. Why was it described as a tragedy? Why was it described as only? Because he had taken 10x Qi gathering pills. It can't be. Jun Changshao said frantically, 1 month of cultivation is equivalent to 10 months of cultivation for others, but I only advanced by 1 rank. The system said, it's normal. Normal? Jun Changshao was speechless. After entering the Martial Master realm from the Martial Disciple realm, he felt that it was very easy to advance. This time, it was the system's turn to be speechless. It said, you feel that it's easy because you have completed the epic missions and skipped levels. In fact, in the Martial Master realm, especially after the 5th rank, even outstanding martial artists need 1 or 2 years to advance. I have 10x Qi gathering pills, Jun Changshao said. The system said, the higher the level, the more heaven and earth attributes you need. The effect of 10x Qi gathering pills will become less obvious. The accumulation of time is especially important. Understood. Jun Chang said with a smile, so you're saying that the higher your cultivation level, the more Qi gathering pills you need. System, what I mean is, the path of martial arts is about gradual progress. It requires a more detailed understanding of the heaven and earth attributes, and it takes time to slowly accumulate. You fucking talk about high multiplier Qi gathering pills, it's not impossible. Let's go and see how Elder Wei's medicinal herbs are doing. During this period of time, the medicinal garden had expanded from more than 10 mu to 50 mu under the care of the medicinal hall's members. It was filled with all kinds of medicinal herbs. The spiritual energy that floated out gathered in the sky, giving people a feeling of clouds and mist. In the small pavilion, Elder Wei handed over a few spatial rings and said, this is the 3rd batch of high-quality medicinal herbs. The medicinal herbs had matured half a month ago. Because Jun Changshao was focused on cultivation, he did not disturb him, so he temporarily stored them. Elder Wei. Jun Changshao took it, drank a mouthful of tea and said, the 200,000 seeds we planted should be maturing soon, right? Elder Wei said, because it's the first time the medicinal herbs around the sect are planted, the environment is limited. I'm afraid it'll take a month or so to mature. No rush, take it slow, Jun Changshao said. Lu Wanshur walked over with Yao Menjing, smiled and said, Sect Master, why are you here too? Jun Changshao joked, why can't I be here? As he spoke, he looked at the little girl. In the past month, Yao Menjing had walked out of her sadness and integrated into Iron Bone's life. Because she was too young, she had not started martial arts. She followed behind Lu Wanshur all day, like a little shadow. Iron Bone's disciples knew that Yao Menjing's background was pitiful, so they took good care of her. It could be said that she was doted on by everyone in the sect. Especially Su Xiaoma and Li Fei, who thought of ways to make their junior sister laugh. It was strange. In front of the senior brothers and sisters, Yao Menjing would be very cheerful, but in front of the sect master, she would be reserved. Now, she was hiding behind Lu Wanshi, and her little face became timid again. Jun Changshao shook his head and thought, am I very scary? Chapter 266. Over the past month, the disciples had completed many sect missions. Their achievement points had increased from 0 to 600 points, and their contribution points had increased from 102 to 602 points. Sect leader Jun was rich. He wished he could open the store and refresh himself. Hold it in, hold it in. Now that he had more disciples, the contribution points would be more practical to use on the sect's construction. There was no need to rely on luck for now. As sect leader Jun's realm increased, so did the disciples. Especially the new disciples, who had opened their 12 meridians with the help of various pills. In the beginning, there were only a few energy-gathering pills. Now, there were a lot of energy-gathering pills, which were at least 5 times stronger. It was reasonable for the disciples to break through faster. The Iron Bones sect was on the right track and was developing rapidly. Li Qingyang and the other inner disciples had also increased their realms in the past month. Other than Tian Qi, who had a high-grade spirit root, who was a rank 9 martial disciple, the rest had all reached the peak of martial disciple. Martial disciple and martial master were obstacles. If they wanted to break through, they needed time to understand the attributes of heaven and earth and let the spiritual energy in their cyclones sublimate. Fortunately, they had supreme-grade spirit roots, so it was not a big problem. However, sect leader Jun thought it was too slow. After all, there was only half a year left before he went to challenge the Sacred Spring sect. He could not let them be stuck at the peak. Are there any pills in the store that can help me break through to Martial Master? Jun Changshao asked. If there were energy-gathering pills for breaking through to Martial Disciple, then there must be similar pills to help him break through to Martial Master. The system said, there are, but it depends on the host's luck. Jun Changshao was silent. Luck was hard to predict. If he went for pills, he might not get any even if he used up all his contribution points. Sometimes, if he refreshed randomly, he might get something unexpected if he was lucky. Forget it, forget it. I'll think about it when I overflow my contribution points. Jun Changshao suppressed his thoughts and continued to cultivate. After cultivating for a night, from the perspective of the increase in spiritual energy, it would take at least 2 to 3 months to break through. 1 month from rank 6 to rank 7, and 2 months from rank 7 to rank 8. If he wanted to break through to rank 9, would it have to double? Sigh. Jun Changshao shook his head and said, it will be difficult to break through to the peak of Martial Master if I challenge the Sacred Spring sect. As he said that, he headed to the tower. Ta! Jun Changshao stood on the first floor of the Tower of Experience and withstood the gravity for 4 hours. His expression did not change, and he did not even pant. Ever since he obtained the Experience Tower, as long as he was in the sect, he would come here to temper himself. He did not pursue extreme tempering, and had long since adapted to it. If Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others did not deliberately challenge the record, they could adapt well. To the second floor. Jun Changshao ignored the gravity and walked to the front of the stairs. Then, he climbed up step by step. The second floor of the training tower lit up early, because Su Xiaoma and Li Fei had already started their training. At this moment, the two of them were running around the illusory space with their tongues hanging out. It felt as if there was a pack of mad dogs chasing after them. Not a bunch of rabid dogs. It was a group of terrifying high-quality dire beasts. They were extremely fast, baring their fangs and roaring. Their sharp teeth were only a palm's distance away from their buttocks. If they were caught and bitten, it meant that they failed, and they would be weakened for 2 days. Only the people involved could see the dire beasts chasing after them, so Jun Changshao shook his head and said, "These two really look like idiots." Schwa. Schwa. Ha. 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 Not long after, Jun Changshao opened his 2 long legs and ran wildly with his tongue hanging out. Because they were stronger than the disciples, not only were there more dire beasts, but they were also very fast, so he could only run with all his might. How long would he run for? At least an hour. Under the deterrence of the side effect of being weakened for 2 days, Jun Changshao and the other 2 ran faster than the other. Yes. In the Tower of Experience, there were now 3 idiots. Being chased by a group of terrifying dire beasts, the tempering of his movement technique was still very effective. In just a few days, Jun Changshao felt that his speed was faster than before, and his understanding of the cloud steps had also deepened. Therefore, every day, he would cultivate for 2 hours on the first floor, 1 hour on the second floor, and the rest of the time would be used to cultivate and manage the sect. Although sect leader Jun needed 2 months to level up, his body and movement technique had been tempered multiple times, and his overall strength could not be measured by his cultivation level. Li Qingyang and the others were the same. Although they were temporarily stuck at the peak of martial disciple, and couldn't enter the martial master level, their bodies and strength were still surpassing their limits. The members of the Drizzle Hall also had a deeper understanding of the telepathy technique, and could already send messages from Qingyang City, which was 100 miles away. As for the other 7 cities, as their cultivation deepened, they would be able to send messages through their minds sooner or later. A few days later, Ai Shang came to visit again. The auction in Lingyang City had already ended, and all the pills had been sold. 70 healing pills were sold for 80 million, and 20 body-shaping pills were sold for 120 million. The 2 added together were 200 million. When Jun Changshao received the 100 million silver notes from the AI family head, he exclaimed, as expected of an 8th-grade county, "There are so many rich people." Sect leader Jun Ai Shang smiled and said, "The pills you made are urgently needed by the warriors. As long as there are enough of them, there will be no shortage of sales." Jun Changshao said, "The rarer something is, the more valuable it is. It may not be a good thing to sell too many pills." Ai Shang agreed and said, "Therefore, after some consideration, I have decided to hold an auction in Huyang City on the first day of every month. There will be 10 healing pills and 5 body-shaping pills." Okay. Jun Changshao handed over 20 healing pills and 10 body-shaping pills and said, "These are enough for 2 months. Sell them first." Ai Shang hurriedly accepted them. Before leaving, he gave a few more spatial rings and said, "Sect leader Jun, these are the herbs and high-quality seeds I bought in Lingyang City." Jun Changshao wanted to pay the money, but the AI family had refused to accept it, so he had to personally send it to the door. After seeing Ai Shang leave, he said excitedly, "I didn't leave my house, and I easily earned 100 million. It feels good." Ding! Ding! After a night of refining, all 4 types of pills were produced. Sect leader Jun's contribution points increased according to the sect's missions, and the money and pills gradually increased. A few more days passed. All the new disciples had broken through to the channel opening period, and more than 100 of them had reached the 12th stage. Song Xianzhou had already become a martial disciple with the help of the body metamorphose scripture and pills. Qingyang City. Jun Changshao said, "Go down the mountain and ask the people from the certification center to come and verify." The number of people who had reached the 12th stage had already met the requirement for the sect to be promoted to the 7th class. But because there were too many people, they had to go up the mountain for verification. Yes. Li Qingyang went down the mountain and entered the certification center of Qingyang City. When attendant Zhao heard that Iron Bone was going to have their sect verified again, his expression became sluggish. It had only been a few months since they were promoted from the 9th class to the 8th class. Attendant Zhao. Seeing Li Qingyang leave, a warrior in the center said unhappily, Iron Bone thinks too highly of themselves. They need us to send people to verify their sect's grade. That's right. Another person said unhappily, only 6th class sects are qualified for us to verify. An 8th class sect is too arrogant. Attendant Zhao reprimanded, stop talking nonsense. Hurry up and prepare. Tomorrow, follow me to Iron Bone for verification. After being scolded by Elder Ma of Tsang Mountain Sect, he was very afraid of Jun Changshao, so he was willing to break the rules and personally verify an 8th class sect. To be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that the system could change the sect's grade and reward contribution points and achievement points after verifying a sect leader Jun wouldn't even bother to verify it. Borrowing the words of a certain reader. Do I need you to admit that I'm strong? Do you think I can't become strong if you don't admit it? Chapter 267. The next day. Deacon Zhao brought a few members of the certification center and rushed all the way to Iron Bone. When they walked in and stood at the inner door, they looked at the magnificent main hall in front of them. Looking at the surrounding jade carvings and jade buildings, they were all dumbfounded. Was this an 8th-rate sect? If it wasn't for the words Iron Bone Clan, written clearly on the plaque outside, Deacon Zhao and the others would have thought that this was a 6th-rate sect. To be honest, after Li Qingyang recultivated a few times, the Iron Bone was truly magnificent. Other than the nameless mountain, the architectural specifications were not inferior to the 6th-rate Haoqi sect. What shocked Deacon Zhao even more was that hundreds of disciples were gathered in the martial arts practice field. Their entire bodies were emitting essence, energy, and spirit. There was no need to verify that they were at the martial disciple level. Lord Deacon, a martial artist exclaimed, these Iron Bone disciples who are cultivating are probably all martial disciples. The person beside him said in disbelief, a few months ago, they were still an unranked sect. How did they suddenly become so powerful? These two brothers were a little unhappy yesterday. Today, when they saw the Iron Bone's buildings and the aura of the disciples, they were immediately slapped in the face. Deacon Zhao calmed down and said, Sect leader Jun has been recruiting disciples recently. Could it be that all of them are martial disciples? Although his tone was questioning, he was 100% certain that the disciples he recruited were all martial disciples. Oh my God! How did he convince so many martial disciples to join the Iron Bone? Thinking back to the recruitment of the 100 sects, he convinced the number 1 genius of the Azure Sun County, Li Qingyang. He also thought back to the Star Moon Tower, where he made the Alliance's big shots vomit blood. Sect leader Jun must have a silver tongue. Deacon Zhao believed that the Iron Bone's martial disciples were directly recruited. If Jun Changshao knew, he would be happy to accept it. After all, it wasn't that shocking, and it was also in line with the strategy of developing the sect in a low-key manner. Deacon Zhao, Li Qingyang said, please. Under his lead, Deacon Zhao led a few members to the main hall. On the way, when they passed by the Iron Bone disciples, they all noticed that the men were tall and sturdy, and the women were light and valiant. These martial disciples were definitely not mediocre. Deacon Zhao, who had authenticated countless sects, came to Iron Bone and experienced what it meant to be shocked. In the main hall, after the disciples served the tea, Jun Changshao asked, Deacon Zhao, is my Iron Bone okay? Deacon Zhao cupped his fists and said, Sect Master Jun's sect is extraordinary. This Zhao evaluates its potential as first class. First rank? The members of the certification center behind him were shocked. When the certification center came to verify the sect's grade, they would make a professional estimation of the sect's potential from all aspects and give it 4 different grades of evaluation, A, B, C, and D. A was the highest and D the lowest. Each level was further divided into 3 levels. For example, although A was the highest grade, it was also divided into first, second, and third grades, from lowest to highest. These people who worked in the authentication center had authenticated many sects with Deacon Zhao, but the highest evaluation they could give was only Class B. Today, he actually gave Iron Bone an A rating. Even the vast Qi sect couldn't achieve such a feat for a sect from a 9th grade county to have the potential to reach the 1st grade. Although the members were shocked, they didn't question it. Because Deacon Zhao had been authenticating sects for dozens of years, his qualifications and experience were very high. Giving an A rating was definitely a professional and not a casual remark. Jun Changshao didn't understand the standards of the certification center. But in his knowledge, the word was definitely a good evaluation, so he cupped his fists and smiled. Deacon Zhao is too serious, too serious. It wasn't just good, it was extremely good. To be able to get an A rating from the certification center, one had to be in a high-grade county or the sect itself had reached the 6th grade. What about Iron Bone? It wasn't in a high-grade county with earth spirit talents, and its sect was only an 8th grade one. If Deacon Zhao's A rating was spread to the Jianghu, it would definitely shock many sects and martial artists. In this county, the number of sects with the potential to reach the 1st grade could be counted with 5 fingers. Oh, right. Jun Changshao had killed Liao Ciyuan Fang, and the Qishan sect he was in charge of had received an A rating, with the reason being that it had great potential to be promoted from a sect to a sect. Deacon Zhao said, "Sect leader Jun's disciples are very strong, and their auras are vigorous. One look and I can tell that they aren't ordinary martial disciples. This is the reason I gave them an A rating, and it's definitely not out of politeness." What did a sect's potential depend on? It definitely didn't depend on the buildings, but on the disciples. Even if the sect was built to be more majestic than the imperial palace, and all the disciples were a group of 2nd or 3rd stage meridian opening cultivators, they definitely wouldn't even receive a B rating. On the contrary, even if the sect was a bunch of thatched cottages, and the group of high-grade disciples lived inside, they would still receive an A rating. If an 8th grade sect had 500 martial disciples, if they didn't receive an A rating, his decades as a deacon would be completely wasted. Deacon Zhao. Jun Changshao returned to the topic, when will the sect be authenticated? Deacon Zhao said, if sect leader Jun gathers the disciples who meet the requirements in the martial arts field, we can authenticate now. Qingyang. Jun Changshao said, gather the disciples and let Deacon Zhao authenticate them one by one. Yes. Li Qingyang left. Not long after, 550 disciples lined up neatly in the martial arts field. Deacon Zhao walked out of the main hall and looked at the group of Iron Bone disciples with their heads held high and their chests puffed out. He thought to himself, what reason is there to not give them an A rating? Deacon Zhao. Jun Changshao pointed to the disciples on the left and said, these are my Iron Bone disciples with a 12th stage meridian opening cultivation. Please begin the authentication. Okay. Deacon Zhao walked down and took out a testing stone from his spatial ring, placing it outside the martial arts field. Please activate the light rings in your hands, and then proceed with the test one by one. As long as your strength reaches 150 kilograms, you pass. The 12 meridian opening cultivation rings could be faked, but strength wouldn't. If a fist could reach 150 kilograms, it would definitely be a 12th stage meridian opening. Go. Jun Changshao waved his hand. Yang Kong, who had just entered the sect, walked up first. He stopped in front of the testing stone and took a deep breath. Then, he raised his fist and punched it. His face was indifferent, and he didn't seem to be serious at all. Deacon Zhao shook his head and thought to himself, isn't the sect leader blaming the sect for being so perfunctory? Bang! His fist landed on the testing stone, and the strength displayed was 150 kilograms. This, Deacon Zhao was dumbfounded. Next, he would continue to be dumbfounded. Because the disciples who came up one after another all attacked with indifference, and the strength displayed was not lower than 150 kilograms. After 50 disciples were authenticated, Jun Changshao said, Deacon Zhao, I really don't have enough Iron Bone 12th stage meridian opening disciples. Can I use martial disciples instead? Deacon Zhao's mouth twitched and said, sure. Go. Jun Changshao said. Cui Bujian walked up first, raised his small fist, and lightly punched the testing stone. He swore that he had controlled his strength, but he still managed to hit 150 kilograms. Chapter 268. Seeing Cui Bujian punch out 3,000 jin of strength, Deacon Zhao's mouth twitched even more. That guy obviously didn't use his full strength. This is a sacred sect test. Can you Iron Bone disciples be a little more careful? The next one to test was Sima Zhongda. His control over his strength was much better than Cui Bujian's. With a light punch, he hit out 2,200 jin of strength. When other people tested, the higher the strength, the better. The Iron Bone disciples were trying their best to suppress their strength. This was really a weirdo among weirdos. The rule was 1,500 jin. As long as it was not lower than this, there was no difference between hitting 10,000 jin and hitting just right. Not to mention, there was a strength testing machine in the training room. Everyone tested their strength every few days and knew their strength like the back of their hand. There was no need to use the testing stone to test seriously. What was the Iron Bone's motto? Low-key, even more low-key. However, it was obviously a low-key test, but Deacon Zhao thought that it was definitely a super high-profile test. A casual punch with a strength of 2 to 3,000 jin. If it really exploded, how terrifying would it be? He couldn't think about it, he didn't dare to think about it. Bang! Bang! The Iron Bone disciples tested one by one as Deacon Zhao recorded. More than 10 minutes later, 450 disciples finished their certification. The lowest strength was 2,000 jin, which met the minimum requirement of 1,500 jin. Next, another 50 martial disciples were certified. Their strength also reached the standard. At that moment, Deacon Zhao was deeply shocked. The requirement to ascend from the 8th class to the 7th class was 50 martial disciples and 512th stage meridian opening. The Iron Bone certification was 500 martial disciples and 50 12th stage meridian opening. The numbers were directly reversed. Exaggerated, too exaggerated. Deacon Zhao had been certified for so many years, but he had never seen such a powerful 8th class sect. Sect leader Jun, he suppressed his shock and said, please test it. If your strength reaches 10,000 jin, you can pass the certification. Okay. Jun Changshao walked down and raised his fist. Bang! After testing the strength of the stone, it shattered on the spot and scattered all over the ground. Deacon Zhao and the other members were instantly dumbfounded. Jun Changshao said awkwardly, sorry, I didn't control my strength well and broke the testing stone. To be honest, the punch just now was very exciting, and he also had the intention to show off. However, he never expected that it would be shattered by himself. This was a testing stone, how could it be broken? Deacon Zhao brought an ordinary testing stone, which could bear a weight of less than 100,000 jin. After sect leader Jun broke through to the 7th grade martial master, even if he didn't use his full strength, a punch of his would be over 50,000 jin. It would be strange if it didn't shatter. Deacon Zhao opened his mouth wide in shock. Sect leader Jun's strength was definitely over 100,000 kilograms to shatter an ordinary testing stone with a single punch. This wasn't just a martial master, this was Wuzong. That's not right. Since it was Wuzong, why didn't it have that unique aura? Could it be that he was deliberately suppressing it? Wrong. Sect leader Jun wasn't Wuzong to begin with. He was only a 7th grade martial master. Deacon Zhao, do you have any more testing stones? There's no need for the test. Deacon Zhao said, Sect Master Jun's strength has met the requirements. As he spoke, he took out an exquisite jade tablet from his spatial ring and used a special method to draw the word 7 on it. He then handed it over and said with a smile, congratulations on your sect's promotion to the 7th rate. Thank you. Jun Changshao took the tablet. Deacon Zhao said seriously, Sect Leader Jun, this Zhao's evaluation of your sect was wrong. It should have been second rate. Another increase in armor. The members of the certification center behind were shocked. In the Falling Star continent, if a sect could get second rate and develop steadily, not only would it become a fifth-rate sect, it would also have a high chance of becoming a fourth-rate sect. Terrifying, too terrifying. If they hadn't come with Deacon Zhao, they wouldn't have dared to imagine that Iron Bone, who was very unhappy yesterday, would be evaluated as second-rate. Was there a third-rate? Yes, there was, but it only existed in fourth-grade counties and above. A ninth-grade county actually had a new sect that was evaluated as second-rate. This was absolutely inconceivable. Ding! Congratulations to the host for upgrading the sect to the 7th rate. The reward is 500 achievement points and 500 contribution points. Ding! Sect contribution points, 120210000. Ding! Sect achievement points, 120010000. Ding! Sect contribution points overflow. Ding! Sect contribution points overflow. After the host upgrades the sect, the overflow will be automatically filled up. The system notifications rang in his ears one after another, making Jun Changshao feel refreshed. The sound of all the values being filled up and overflowing was definitely the most beautiful sound in the world. Sect Leader Jun. Deacon Zhao cupped his hands and said, the sect certification has been completed. This Zhao will take his leave first. He needed to return to the certification center immediately and report his evaluation of Iron Bone to the headquarters so that it could be recorded in the records. Jun Changshao said, Deacon Zhao, what are the requirements for upgrading from the 7th rate to the 6th rate? According to the certification rules, the master of a 6th-rate sect must have the cultivation of Wuzong. The sect must have 10 martial masters, 500 martial disciples, and 1,000 12th-stage meridian opening cultivators. Deacon Zhao explained. Jun Changshao, there weren't many sects that met the requirements to upgrade to the 6th rate. It seemed that there was still a long way to go. That's not right. Jun Changshao said, as far as I know, the sect leader of the Grand Spirit sect had just broken through to Wuzong not long ago. His sect was already a 6th rate long ago. Deacon Zhao explained, the previous sect leader of the Grand Spirit sect had the cultivation of Wuzong. The sect was also certified by him. I see. Jun Changshao understood. Once a sect had a high level, the next sect leader would take over. Even if the sect's level was low, it wouldn't drop. Deacon Zhao said, is there anything else, sect leader Jun? Nothing. Then this Zhao will take his leave first. Jun Changshao sent him to the mountain gate and cupped his hands, have a safe journey. After sending Deacon Zhao off, he couldn't wait to open the system status panel and press the upgradable button next to the sect's construction. Ding! Sect construction upgraded to level 4. Ding! Sect members, contribution points, and achievement points increased. Ding! Sect's talisman pavilion opened. After the notification sounded, the system's data panel immediately changed. Sect name, Iron Bone Clan. Sect leader, Jun Changshao. Sect level, 7th rate. Sect construction, level 4. Sect functions, medicine refining pavilion, smithing pavilion, talisman pavilion. Sect cultivation technique, Jin Jing, divine grade beginner level, cloud steps, high grade beginner level, sound transmission, mid grade high grade beginner level. Sect members, 100020000. Sect contribution points, 120220000. Sect achievement points, 2002000. Sect mission, sent to the Sect mission board. Sect main mission, within 100 years. Seeing that the upper limit only increased from 1,000 to 2,000, Jun Changshao was a bit disappointed. After all, The system said that he could buy mid-level store items when he was at level 4. However, any item in the mid-level store started at 1,000 contribution points. Even if he maxed it out, he could only buy 2 of them. What? The system said, does the host want to buy 20 of them in the mid-level store like he bought the molding house? What? Jun Changshao said, is it illegal to even think about it? Chapter 269. The system was rendered speechless by the host's words. After all, it wasn't illegal to think about it. Jun Changshao didn't care about this guy who kept attacking him. Instead, he tapped on the talisman pavilion. 7th rate, 4 levels up. These weren't as important as the new functions. Schwa. A small independent panel popped out, and a 3D projection of a Tai Chi pattern appeared. The alchemy pavilion was the pill furnace, and the forging pavilion was the forging table. This talisman pavilion had a Tai Chi pattern. Could it be a device for refining talismans? Sect leader Jun continued to look. When he saw the 3 talismans, his eyes lit up and he almost jumped up in excitement. The 3 talismans were respectively Beginner Grade Strength Increasing Talisman, Beginner Grade Insight Talisman, Beginner Grade Speed Talisman. Lord Changshao often used the 2 talismans that were sold on the stage, so he could still treat them with a normal attitude. But the Speed Talisman made him so excited that he couldn't control himself. After all, it was a talisman from the novice gift bag. When he crushed it during the fight with AI Shanka, it was so fast that it left an afterimage for a long time. When he killed the 2 Wei brothers in the city lord's residence, he also relied on this talisman that hadn't expired yet. To be able to refine this kind of talisman in the talisman pavilion, not to mention fighting enemies, just traveling was much faster than riding the purple lightning tiger cub. Oh my god. Oh my god. Buddha Tathagata. I'm going to be rich. Don't get excited, calm down. The system said, you are the leader of a sect. You are the main character. Don't let the readers laugh at you. Ahaha. Ahahaha. Jun Changshao forgot himself and laughed while leaning on the door. Then, he squatted down and laughed. His laughter was like the 9527 in Tang Bohu's Autumn Fragrance. Second senior brother. Su Xiaoma, who was standing on the training ground, whispered, what's wrong with the sect leader? Li Qingyang said, maybe the sect leader is too excited to be promoted to the 7th rate. The sect leader is worried sick about the sect. It's understandable that he can't control his emotions after being promoted from the 8th rate to the 7th rate. Su Xiaoma said. So, Li Qingyang turned around and said seriously, we have to work hard to cultivate and make the sect stronger. We can't let down the sect leader's nurturing. Yes. All the disciples said in unison. Jun Changshao squatted at the entrance and laughed heartily. Hundreds of disciples stood neatly in the martial arts practice field. Although the scene was a little funny, it was also quite heartwarming. He laughed wildly for a while. Sect leader Jun finally calmed down. He clicked on the introduction of the strength increasing talisman and the refinement materials panel. His expression froze. The introduction said, after crushing this item, one's strength would be doubled. No. The ones sold in the shop could increase the price by 5 times, but this one only increased the price by 2 times. The system said, although it has shrunk, the usage time has increased. It can last for 120 minutes without any side effects. Jun Changshao was on the verge of breaking down. If he had a choice, he would rather increase the multiplier and shorten the time limit. After all, he was so strong that he could absolutely suppress his opponent. A few seconds or minutes would be enough to end the battle. The system said, you don't need to spend any contribution points. Are you still not satisfied? I'm satisfied. Jun Changshao said, of course I'm satisfied. As long as he didn't spend any contribution points, even a 30% to 50% increase in strength was better than nothing. Moreover, after mass production, he could give it to the disciples. When facing a strong opponent or danger, they could crush it and use it. Jun Changshao looked down. The required materials were 0-2 middle 9th grade crystal cores, 0/20 low 9th grade crystal cores. The middle 9th grade crystal cores were very expensive. Below, there was a small line of words supplementary materials, 66,991 low-grade healing pills. Jun Changshao was stunned and broke down. I can understand using crystal cores to refine talismans, but what the hell is a supplementary material called healing pills? The system explained, the talisman refining materials in the talisman pavilion have a meticulous scientific basis. Healing pills and strength increase had nothing to do with each other, but they actually had a meticulous basis. This was really scientific. Still, are you bullying me for being uncultured? Jun Changshao continued to click on the Talisman of Insight. This was no different from the shop. The required materials were of a higher grade, 5 middle 9th grade crystal cores, 10 middle 1st grade crystal cores, and finally the supplementary materials required 1 low-grade body-shaping pill. Jun Changshao held his head and said frantically, "Don't tell me, this also has a meticulous scientific basis." Yes. Jun Changshao almost vomited blood. After consuming the body-shaping pill, it could improve the physical body and increase strength. It was still somewhat understandable that it was used as a supplementary material for the strength-increasing talisman. But to add this into the Talisman of Insight, how scientific was it to create this? Phew. Jun Changshao took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and opened the Talisman of Gale again. As expected of the finale. There were a total of 4 materials, namely Wind Element 5th Grade Crystal Core, 0/1, Wind Element 1st Grade Crystal Core, 0/2, Wind Element 9th Grade Crystal Core, 0/5. Finally, it was the supplementary material Cyclone Pill. Alright. There must be a meticulous scientific basis for this. I'm really convinced. After looking at the 3 types of talismans, Jun Changshao understood that the main material for refining talismans was the crystal core, which was the main ingredient for refining talismans. Especially the Talisman of Gale. All 3 crystal cores were of the wind element, so collecting and refining them would undoubtedly be very difficult. With such a heaven-defying speed, if he could easily refine them, wouldn't he be using a speed cheat? I can buy the materials for the strength-increasing talisman and mass-produce some. The materials for the Talisman of Insight also needed to be sold. However, this thing couldn't be used to comprehend the battle techniques in the shop, so it didn't have much meaning. He could just casually refine a dozen of them. As for the Talisman of Gale, Jun Changshao definitely wanted to refine it. However, in his opinion, even if the 8 cities in Qingyang County had wind element crystal cores, they might not meet the requirements for refining. Right. Thinking of something, he asked, is the Gale Wolf's crystal core of the wind element? Yes. The system replied. Ah. Jun Changshao almost banged his head against the pillar. Back then, he killed quite a number of Gale Wolves in Death Valley. Although he sold them to AI Shangya, he bought them back and used them to mutate the fire dragon. Crepe Myrtle. My fault, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have wasted it all for the sake of mutating. All the crystal cores were used to hatch and mutate the fire dragon. Jun Changshao could only accept reality and personally made a trip to Qingyang City. As expected. There wasn't even a single wind element crystal core in the crystal core shop. Jun Changshao shook his head. He could only choose the other 2 materials. He had gathered 10 strength-increasing talismans and 2 talismans of insight. How much? A total of 5 million taels. Sect leader Jun, who was worth more than 100 million, didn't care about this small amount of money. He bought it and returned to the sect. Same old rules. On the way, he started to refine a 1-button machine. However, after returning to the sect, he didn't refine a single talisman. The speed was even slower than a middle-grade healing pill. Jun Changshao comforted himself, the talisman's price is high, so it's understandable that it's slow. Sitting in the study, he opened the shop. He started to think about whether he should refresh the remaining 202 points or go to the middle-grade shop. Forget it. Mid-grade items are too expensive. I'll use them to refresh first. If I'm lucky, maybe I can. While he was thinking, Jun Changshao had already refreshed the beginner shop. The first item came into view. It was called Array Enhancer. He clicked on the details. Item, Array Enhancer. Description, a treasure that strengthens all kinds of arrays. Effect, defensive formations increase defense power by 50%. Offensive formations increase attack power by 20%. Spiritual power formations increase spiritual power by 100%. Weakness, can only be used on beginner-grade arrays in the shop. Price, 200 contribution points. Jun Changxiao's eyes lit up. I have beginner-grade arrays and sect-protecting arrays. This thing can increase strength. Recommended purchase price, 5 stars. System, not only did the host learn how to answer first, he also learned how to steal my lines. P.S. Recommendation tickets, monthly tickets, all kinds of requests. 4 updates today, all at once. Chapter 270. Jun Changshao spent 200 contribution points to buy the array strengthening device. The elementary disciple's spirit chi array was a type of spirit chi array. With this item, the strength of one's spirit chi would increase by 100%. With so many disciples in the sect, the supply of spirit gathering pills would definitely be insufficient. At this time, cultivating inside the spirit chi array was undoubtedly the best choice. After all, it only cost 1 contribution point a day. Buzz. Placing the array strengthening device inside the spirit chi array, the spirit chi gathered was 3 times that of the outside world. Although it was only a 1-fold increase, it would undoubtedly allow the disciples to absorb spirit chi faster to increase their cultivation. Sect leader Jun made the arrangements. The new disciples trained their bodies in the training room while they entered the array to cultivate in batches. After they were done, they entered the training tower and began their routine of tempering their bodies and speed. As for the 3rd floor, Jun Changshao planned to explore it when he could easily run around a group of ferocious beasts for 2 hours. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and Yi Xingchen were still cultivating on the 1st level. They would not go to the 2nd level until they had tempered their bodies to the maximum. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei were more focused on the 2nd level. After all, it was helpful for their movement techniques. Song Xianzhou had only been in the sect for a month. Although he also wanted to enter the training tower, he could only continue to build his body in the shaping room. He cherished being able to stand up from his paralysis and worked very hard on his cultivation. In the Iron Bones sect, the genius halo would be weakened. If one wanted to become stronger, they would have to work hard continuously. If they slacked off even a little, they might be surpassed by ordinary fellow disciples of the same sect. A few days later, the disciples completed the remaining sect missions. Their achievement points had increased to 500 points and their contribution points to 1287 points. What should I buy? I think the Qi Gathering Elixir is the best. That's right. We don't need weapons for now. Let's buy the Qi Gathering Elixir. Many disciples obtained their own contribution points after completing the sect missions and bought the Qi Gathering Elixir from the vending machine in the market. Although they did not have many Qi Gathering Elixirs, with the Spirit Qi Array and the weakened version of the Qi Gathering Elixir, their cultivation increased quickly. 10 days later, the 400 new disciples, with the exception of Yao Menjing, who had not come into contact with martial arts, had all opened a 12th stage meridian opening. Some of the disciples even relied on the revolving Qi pill to become a martial disciple. It had only been about 50 days since he had entered the sect. Many disciples who were at the 1st level of the channel opening realm were able to break through to the 12th level. The falling star continent was very big. It was divided into 12 continents, which was why it was called the 12 prefectures. 9 of the prefectures were connected to each other. As for the other 3 prefectures, because they were separated by the endless sea, they did not have any interactions with each other. It was as if they were isolated from the world. Every state had its own culture, and its area was much larger than Earth. It was like an independent world. Other than special states, most states did not have countries. They were divided into counties, cities, and towns. For example, Southwest Yangzhou, which was closest to the southwest, had 200 to 300 counties within its borders, and each county had a population of more than 10 million. The Azure Sun County was one of the most inconspicuous ninth-grade counties in the southwestern Yangzhou. Not to mention Southwest Yangzhou, even in the entire Falling Star continent, they were at the bottom of the food chain. Due to its geographical location, Southwest Yangzhou was not considered to be very strong in the 9 prefectures. It was at the lower middle level. Southwest Yangzhou did not have a country, but each county had its own government, which was equivalent to a small regime. Among them, the strongest was the 3rd-grade Heavenly Mandate County. The main city of the Heavenly Mandate County was the Heavenly Mandate Imperial City. It was considered the capital of Southwest Yangzhou because it was the only city in the state that had reached the Imperial City level. That was right. Counties were divided into different grades and grades. Cities were also divided. To reach the Imperial City level, not only did it have to be strong overall, but it also had to have a certain number of martial kings. Other counties and cities in southwest Yangzhou also had martial kings, but the number did not meet the requirements. They could only be named as cities, not Imperial City. Above the Imperial City were the Imperial City, the Sacred City, and the Imperial City. As the name suggested, the Imperial City and the Sacred City must have a sufficient number of Wu Huang and Wu Sheng. In the mainstream 9 prefectures of the Falling Star continent, there were at least 99 imperial cities. However, the Imperial City and the Sacred City were relatively rare. As for the Imperial City, it had only appeared once since ancient times, and that was tens of thousands of years ago. According to the rules set by the ancestors, it could only be called an imperial city with 3 or more martial emperors. There were only 9 martial emperors in the Falling Star continent now. It was impossible to gather 3 martial emperors in a city. It was a bit off topic. The camera turned to the Imperial City of the Heavenly Mandate Sect Certification Hall. At this moment, a white-haired old man was sitting at the head of the hall. His skinny fingers were tapping rhythmically on the tea table. His name was Yi Tianjian. He was the head of the certification hall in southwest Yangzhou. On both sides of the head of the table sat 4 old men in gold-trimmed robes. They were the elders of the certification hall. Although their eyes were cloudy, they had a strong aura. It was obvious that they were experts. Everyone. After a while, Yi Tianjian said, "What do you think of the news brought by Deacon Zhao of Qingyang County?" An elder said, "It's unbelievable that a sect in a 9th-grade county was given a 2nd-grade evaluation." Another person said, "I have never seen a sect in a 9th-grade county that has the potential to reach 2nd grade since I became an elder of the Yangzhou headquarters. Moreover." He paused and said, "That Iron Bones sect has just entered the 7th grade from the 8th grade." Another elder asked, "Could it be a misjudgment? Zhao Xingming has been a deacon in the Qingyang County branch for 30 to 50 years. The elder beside him said, "Although he has no outstanding achievements, he has been diligent in his duties. There shouldn't be a mistake." Elder Zhou, if this old man remembers correctly, you were the one who promoted Zhao Xingming, right? An elder chuckled. Elder Zhou frowned and said, "Elder Zhen, what do you mean?" Elder Zhen said, "From what I know, Zhao Xingming signed an agreement with the 100 Sect Alliance in Qingyang County without permission. He has to provide an alliance certificate. This is extremely absurd. There was no such thing as an airtight wall." What Deacon Zhao had done in the Azure Sun County had reached this elder's ears. Elder Zhou's face was extremely ugly. He was the one who promoted Zhao Xingming. If the head of the training hall looked into this matter, he would definitely be implicated. Despicable fellow. Was his brain kicked by a donkey? Why would he sign an agreement with the 100 Sect Alliance without permission? Elder Zhen's words caused the atmosphere in the hall to become serious. The other two elders did not say anything. Elder Zhou and Elder Zhen had always disliked each other, so it was normal for them to argue with each other when they were discussing. Yi Tianjian said, "We are discussing official matters. As for Zhao Xingming's matter, let's talk about it another day." Elder Zhen cupped his hands and said, "Head of the training hall, Deacon Zhao might have accepted bribes. I believe that the Iron Bone's second-grade evaluation should be denied." Elder Zhen. Elder Zhou said indifferently, "Without evidence, please do not accuse a deacon who has been diligent in his duties. This will disappoint the deacons of the other counties." Humph. Elder Zhen said, "With the shady business that Zhao Xingming has done with the 100 Sect Alliance, I find it hard to believe that he would be diligent in his duties and not break the law. He was going all out." Elder Zhou was not going to admit defeat and was about to retort. But before he could say anything, Yi Tianjian said, "Send someone to Qingyang County to verify again." "Isn't that enough?" "That's right." One of the elders who was watching the show said, "I also feel that it is fairer to send someone from the headquarters to verify again." Elder Zhen said, "Head of the training hall, I am willing to go." "I will go too." Elder Zhou said. The other two elders shook their heads. Sending two elders from the headquarters to verify for a sect in a 9th-grade county was already a great treatment. Chapter 271. Looking up from the foot of Iron Bone Mountain, one could see that there were clouds and mist halfway up the mountain. This was the spiritual energy released by the 200,000 medicinal herbs after they gradually matured. Although it couldn't be compared to that of a big sect, it was undoubtedly a good start. Sect Master Elder Wei, who was standing on the boulder, pointed at the long mountain range and said, "As long as we continue to plant medicinal herbs, Iron Bone Mountain will definitely become a treasure land with abundant spiritual energy. We have to spend money." Jun Changshao said. Elder Wei said, "How can we improve the environment if we don't invest? Besides, Iron Bone Mountain is full of spiritual energy, and the quality of the medicinal herbs cultivated will be high. The effect of using them to refine pills will also be more obvious." "That makes sense." Jun Changshao said, "I will continue to purchase seeds. I will have to trouble Elder Wei and the medicine hall to plant them. This is part of my duty," Old Man Wei said. Joining Iron Bone and becoming the medicine hall master, everything he did was definitely for the sect. "When can these medicinal herbs be collected?" Jun Changshao asked. Elder Wei said, "Wait for another 2 days and let them release more heaven and earth attributes." "Okay." Jun Changshao handed over the sect's affairs to Li Qingyang and went to Huyang City to buy 400,000 high-quality seeds from the AI family in one go. Patriarch AI Shanko was puzzled. "Sect Master Jun bought so many medicinal herb seeds, can you plant them all?" "If I'm not wrong." AI Shanka said, "Sect Master Jun bought so many seeds to improve the spiritual energy environment of Iron Bone Mountain. Planting spiritual energy-type medicinal herbs to improve the heaven and earth attributes of a mountain was very common in the Starfall continent." AI Shanka was speechless. That nameless mountain has almost no spiritual energy. Spending so much money to transform it, it's better to choose another mountain. Indeed. Instead of spending money and effort to transform it, it was better to choose another mountain. Even if the spiritual energy was weak, it was still better than opening up Iron Bone Mountain. Jun Changshao naturally knew that he could choose another mountain and move the sect there. However, wouldn't it be more challenging to start off as a 9th-rate sect in a 9th-rate county and slowly develop into the strongest sect? After the system learned of his thoughts, it once said, "The host has a tendency to self-abuse." A few days later, Elder Wei collected all 200,000 mature herbs. After a round of distribution, Jun Changshao collected more than 30,000 sets of materials to refine the qi gathering pill. This felt great. Opening the pill refinement pavilion, the medicinal herbs were automatically allocated, and Zhang Xian decisively began refining. It would definitely take some time to refine more than 30,000 qi amassing pills, but Jun Changshao felt that it was like the sound of nature when he heard the tinkling sounds. 2 days later, all the pills were refined. Looking at the pile of energy-gathering pills in his interspatial ring, Jun Changshao felt that he was very happy now. It was a pity. Because it was the first batch of medicinal herbs to be planted, the effect of the pill was only 10 times. Jun Changshao was already very satisfied. After all, more than 30,000 qi amassing pills were enough for the disciples. Furthermore, Elder Wei had already led people to start the second planting. The ecological environment would be improved, the maturity period would be shortened, and the quality would be greatly improved. It could be said that, as long as there were enough funds and seeds, it would form a virtuous cycle. The ecological environment would slowly change, and there would be no shortage of energy-gathering pills. Thinking of the lingering spiritual energy of the Iron Bone Mountain and the endless supply of energy-gathering pills, Jun Changshao immediately felt comfortable all over. It would not be difficult for him to go up to the 5th floor in one go. Sect leader Li Luoqiu walked into the main hall and said, "I just received news that the Southwest Yangzhou Certification Headquarters sent 2 elders to Qingyang City to accompany City Lord Xia and Deacon Zhao to my Iron Bone." Jun Changshao said, "What does the certification headquarters mean by sending people over?" "In my opinion," Li Luoqiu deduced, "our Iron Bone was evaluated as the second best, which alarmed the certification headquarters. This time, the elders should be carefully examined." Sect leader Li Qingyang said, "Deacon Sun is here to visit." Jun Changshao, who had just received the news, was not surprised, so he said, "Invite him in." Li Qingyang said, "Deacon Sun brought 2 elders with strong auras, at least Wuzong cultivation. Could it be that they were here to cause trouble?" The system said, "The host not only has a tendency to self-abuse, but also a tendency to be persecuted. Get lost." Li Qingyang said, "City Lord Xia also accompanied them. He is very respectful to the 2 elders. In this disciple's opinion, they should be important figures. In that case, isn't it a bit rash for me not to personally go out to welcome them?" Jun Changshao said. Li Luoqiu said, "I think, for the sake of City Lord Xia, there is nothing wrong with the sect leader going out to welcome them." "This disciple thinks so too," Li Qingyang said. "Good." Jun Changshao stood up and said, "For the sake of City Lord Xia, I will personally go out to welcome them." Elder Zhen, who was standing outside the Iron Bone sect, said impatiently, "Is it that slow to report?" Still, the Iron Bone sect leader is so arrogant, why didn't he come out to welcome them personally? As an elder of the Southwest Yangzhou Certification Department, of course he would welcome a sect of his own accord. Xia Guangquan said with a smile, "Elder Zhen suddenly came and did not inform us in advance. Sect leader Jun must not have been prepared, so please forgive us for any neglect." Our lovely City Lord Xia was always on Jun Changshao's side. Of course, his efforts were not in vain. Jun Changshao, who originally did not plan to go out to welcome them, came out because of him. Creak. The red door opened. Jun Changshao stepped out, without even looking at the 2 elders of the certification department, and smiled, "City Lord Xia, how come you have time to visit my Iron Bone?" "Ah." City Lord Xia was a little confused, and said, "Sect leader Jun, I am accompanying 2 elders of the Southwest Yangzhou Certification Department." The words Southwest Yangzhou Certification Department were especially loud, obviously hinting that the people who came were important people, and he must not be negligent. "So it's the elders of the certification department." Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said politely, "Sorry for the lack of manners." Elder Zhen said lightly, "Sect leader Jun is really arrogant to make me wait outside for so long." Elder Zhou said, Sect leader Jun still has to deal with sect affairs, and can't stand at the door waiting to welcome him every day. Someone shouldn't be so calculative. Look. They were arguing again. Elder Zhen said lightly, Elder Zhou, this time, if the Iron Bone sect's potential does not reach the 2nd grade, there will be a big problem. I believe in Deacon Zhao's evaluation, how can there be a problem? Elder Zhou said. As the two of them argued, the atmosphere became more solemn. This made City Lord Xia, who was at the side, feel a little awkward. Deacon Zhao's back was covered in cold sweat. Elder Zhen's visit this time was obviously against him. If the Iron Bone sect's potential did not reach the 2nd grade, they would be in big trouble. At that moment, he suddenly had a scary thought. Could it be that those martial disciples with strong auras who helped the Iron Bone sect certification were hired by Jun Changshao? Chapter 272. It wasn't as if cheating had never happened before. Although it was exposed in the end and they were severely punished by the certification hall, there would still be people taking the risk every once in a while. If the Iron Bone sect hired someone and they suddenly came for a new certification today, all the disciples would turn into crooked melons. Not only would his career be ruined, his life would also be in danger. Thinking about this, Deacon Zhao's cold sweat flowed even faster, and his heart became even more anxious. Everyone. Jun Changshao said, it's windy outside, please come in. Elder Zhen was the first to leave. Elder Zhou and City Lord Xia walked in one after another. Deacon Zhao walked in and said softly, Sect leader Jun, my life is in your hands, I hope that there won't be any accidents during the 2nd certification. At this time, he wanted to kneel down and cry for the 2nd grade. Jun Changshao didn't understand, how can there be any accidents? Deacon Zhao said, what I mean is, please treat the certification seriously and not treat it as a game. Jun Changshao followed him in and said softly, Deacon Zhao, if my Iron Bone sect doesn't get the 2nd grade, will you be in trouble? Deacon Zhao said softly, it will be very troublesome. I understand. Jun Changshao said, I will definitely make the disciples treat the 2nd certification seriously, but, he paused, Deacon Zhao and Alliance Master Qin are very close, and Jun and Alliance Master Qin also have a grudge, this will be a little awkward. Sect leader Jun clearly remembered how arrogant this person was in the certification hall and how he made things difficult for him. If not for Elder Ma's appearance and certification as an 8th grade sect, he would have to run to another county. Deacon Zhao's expression changed. He hurriedly lowered his voice, Sect leader Jun, I only have an agreement with Alliance Master Qin, we are not close in private, please don't misunderstand. At this time, even if he was sworn brothers with Alliance Master Qin, he had to cut ties with him, after all, his life was at stake. Jun Changshao said, Jun can tell, so I hope that Deacon Zhao will be more careful with the 100 Sect Alliance certification in the future. This was definitely sarcastic. This was definitely telling him to make things difficult for the 100 Sect Alliance. Deacon Zhao affirmed, definitely, definitely. Elder Zhen, who was walking in front, stopped in his tracks. He turned around and said, the two of you are whispering at the back. Could it be that you are colluding to fake it? Jun Changshao said, my iron bone has always proven everything with my strength. I never lie. Strength? Elder Zhen said faintly, you can only prove it through verification. You can't just talk about it. Oh, shit. This old man doesn't seem to like my iron bone. Elder Zhen wasn't unhappy with iron bone. He was unhappy with Elder Zhou. In his opinion, if Zhao Xingming accepted bribes in private, he must have colluded with iron bone. Then, it must have something to do with Elder Zhou. Sigh. The infighting in the adult world was a little complicated. Iron Bone had been wronged. Because of the grudge between the two elders, he had been shot for no reason. If it was any other sect, they wouldn't mind being shot, but was Jun Changshao the kind of person who would take a bullet for nothing? He wasn't. So, Since Elder Zhen was unhappy with him, he had to make him unhappy too. Elder Jun Changshao said, your certification headquarters came to my iron bone for the second time. Could it be that you have doubts about the previous certification? Sect Master Jun and Deacon Zhao should know whether there are doubts or not, right? Elder Zhen said coldly. They didn't come with good intentions. Jun Changshao said, you mean to say that my iron bone and Deacon Zhao colluded to fake the Sect certification? We will know whether it is fake or not after the new certification. At this point, Elder Zhen's expression froze. Because he had already seen the majestic Sect's main hall. Elder Zhou, who had been holding back his words, also had a look of surprise. As an important person from the imperial city, he had seen buildings more luxurious than Iron Bone's main hall. But it was rare for a 7th or 8th-rate sect to be able to build something like this. City Lord Xia also opened his eyes wide. Oh my god! Sect Master Jun's main hall was so luxurious. Humph, Elder Zhen said indifferently, building the main hall so luxurious, even if the sect's strength doesn't increase, it will only be on paper. Elder Zhen's words are wrong. Elder Zhou seized the opportunity and retorted, Sect Master Jun built the main hall so luxurious. It means that you have the ambition to make the sect stronger. That's right. Jun Changshao said, since I have established the sect, Jun naturally wants to make Iron Bone stronger. That is why I built the main hall so that it won't have to be rebuilt in the future. Elder Zhou raised his thumb and said, the falling star continent lacks ambitious young people like Sect Master Jun. Elder Zhen wouldn't believe that there was no relationship between the two of them when he praised Jun Changshao like this. He said coldly, it is good to have dreams, but if you have unrealistic fantasies or take advantage of opportunities to take the wrong path, you are just deceiving yourself. Damn it! Is this guy so sure that my iron bone is fake? Good. Good. I will gather all the disciples here and test them seriously. I will show you what it means to prove yourself with strength. Jun Changshao wanted to keep a low profile, but since the other party was so sure that he was fake, he had to make a big show of it. Qingyang. He shouted, gather all the disciples who participated in the test last time and let this elder test them again. Yes. Before long, all 550 disciples were gathered in the training field. Deacon Zhao heaved a sigh of relief. These disciples were the ones who had been tested previously. Even if they were really hired by Sect Master Jun, as long as they were still here, they would definitely be second grade. Not bad, not bad. Elder Zhou praised the Iron Bone disciples. Judging from their auras, they are all good seedlings. As an elder of the headquarters, his judgment was definitely sharper than Deacon Zhao's. Elder Zhen said indifferently, although these disciples are not bad, they are at most first grade. Deacon Zhao giving them second grade is a bit too much. Deacon Zhao said, reporting to Elder Zhen, this subordinate gave a second-place evaluation after the Iron Bone Sect's disciple test. Is that so? Elder Zhen said indifferently, then let's start the test again. As he spoke, he summoned the testing stone and said, Sect Master Jun, you should know the rules. Please test the strength of the disciples one by one. Jun Changshao said, disciples, listen up. These two elders are from the headquarters of Southwest Yangzhou. They are here to test my Iron Bone disciples for the second time. Test them seriously. Yes. All the disciples shouted in unison. Swoosh. Cui Bujian was the first to step out. He gathered the spiritual energy in his cyclone and punched fiercely. This time, he was absolutely serious. He did not deliberately suppress his strength. Boom. His strength was displayed as 13,000 jin. Gah! Deacon Zhao was dumbfounded. This disciple's strength was only 3,000 jin during the last test. The difference between 13,000 and 3,000 was too big. Elder Zhou and Elder Zhen were also a bit confused. After all, 10,000 jin was comparable to a normal rank 1 martial master. Boom! The next to step out was Sima Zhongda. He punched the testing stone and his strength was displayed as 14,000 jin. Boom! 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 Li Tiantian, Yang Yuhua, and the others stepped out one after another. These martial disciples who entered the sect earlier all had strength above 10,000 jin. Until Yang Kong and the other new disciples tested. Because they had just entered the martial disciple realm from rank 12, their strength was around 4,000 jin. However, it was still much higher than the test value. Deacon Zhao's heart was in a perilous situation. The last 50 disciples were only at rank 12 in the last test. How did they all become martial disciples in such a short period of time? Boom! Jun Changshao punched again and the normal testing stone shattered again. Elder Zhen and Elder Zhou's eyes widened. City Lord Xia almost lost his balance and fell to the ground in shock. One punch to shatter the testing stone. This strength was definitely above 100,000 jin. A 7th grade sect leader could produce a strength comparable to a rank 1 wuzong. This was simply too terrifying. Elder Zhen, right? Jun Changshao retracted his fist and turned around. He said indifferently, Jun and the 550 disciples have finished testing. Do they meet the previous evaluation? It doesn't fit. Elder Zhou was the first to speak. Oh. Jun Changshao was surprised. Elder Zhou said solemnly, based on the performance of sect leader Jun and the disciples, they should be in the top 3. Top 3. City Lord Xia's body swayed and he staggered back 2 steps. His eyes were filled with shock and horror. Chapter 273. The top 3 sects could only be found in the 4th grade counties and above. That place was full of talents and experts. Naturally, their potential was limitless. But today, at this very moment, after seeing the Iron Bone Disciples test, Elder Zhou's evaluation of the top 3 was undoubtedly shocking. One had to know that this was only a 7th-rate sect. One had to know that this was an inconspicuous 9th-grade county. Hearing Elder Zhou's evaluation, Mayor Xia was so shocked that his body trembled. His eyes were filled with horror. After knowing that the Iron Bone Disciples were certified as 2nd grade, he was unable to control himself. Now that they were tested again and rated as 3rd grade, this was definitely a blow to his soul. I have a top 3 sect in my territory. Heavens! This was too unreal, too unbelievable. If not for his status as the mayor, Xie Guanquan would have raised his hand to slap his own face to confirm whether this was real or not. A top 3 sect in a 9th grade county. It was indeed very shocking. If this spread to the Jianghu, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. Elder Zhen. Elder Zhou said, do you have any objections to this old man's evaluation? Elder Zhen was silent for a moment, then said, no objections. Although he always went against Elder Zhou, he still had to give the Iron Bone Disciples a top 3 grade certification. Why? Because there were at least 50 disciples who could produce a strength of 10,000 jin that was comparable to a 1st grade martial master. They were only martial disciples. Under the circumstances of a low-level martial master, their potential was definitely limitless. They definitely deserved a top 3 grade. In fact, if the Iron Bone Disciples were given a few more months, they would be able to produce a strength of a martial master at the martial disciple level. After all, there were body-shaping pills, shaping rooms, and training pagoda. Deacon Zhao was also stunned for a while. It turned out that the Iron Bone Disciples were so scary when they were serious. It turned out that he had underestimated them. Elder Zhen. Elder Zhou said, thank you for your doubts. Otherwise, the certification center would have recognized the wrong person. These words were, Elder Zhen's face immediately turned red, as if he had been slapped hard. They didn't find out that it was fake, but they found out that it was a top 3 sect. This situation was a little awkward. Elder Zhou cupped his hands and said, Sect Leader Jun, we have to return to the headquarters tonight. We won't disturb you. Iron Bone being rated as top 3 was a big matter. Jun Cheng smiled and said, 2 elders, my Iron Bone sect has just started. The sect's first motto is to keep a low profile. Please don't make this matter public. How could it be called keeping a low profile if he made his disciples take the test seriously? Mayor Xia was speechless. Elder Zhou was a little stunned. Even if the other sects had been certified as a triple B, they would publicize it wantonly to raise their sect's reputation. The Iron Bone sect actually had to keep a low profile after being certified as one of the top 3 sections. Jun Cheng smiled and said, would you like to stay for a meal before leaving? Unable to refuse such hospitality, everyone stayed for a meal. Then, they ate until their faces were almost covered in tears. The 2 elders had eaten a lot of delicacies, but after eating Lu Wanchu's food, they realized that what they ate before was just plain tea. Even a 7th-rate sect had such a good chef. No wonder their disciples were so strong. After eating and drinking, Elder Zhou waved his hand and said, Sect Leader Jun, we will take our leave first. Jun Chengshao personally sent them to the door. Since he was the head of a sect, he naturally had to be elegant. If he didn't send them off, it would only give people a feeling of arrogance. Living in another world, you could act cool, but you couldn't be brainless. Thank you, City Lord. Jun Chengshao said, why aren't you leaving? Xia Guankuan said with a serious expression, Sect Leader Jun, to be honest, I haven't eaten my fill. Jun Chengshao almost fell. Our lovely City Lord Xia ate another meal in the cafeteria before returning to the main topic. Sect Leader Jun, under your leadership, Iron Bone has undergone earth-shaking changes in just a few months. It was definitely not flattery. In the past, Iron Bone was the most inferior sect in his eyes. Since the 100th sect recruitment, it had become unstoppable. It was really unexpected for Xia Guankuan. Previously, because of the destruction of the Spirit Spring sect, he did not hesitate to fall out with Alliance Master Qin because he felt that Jun Chengshao was a daring little guy with character. Jun Chengshao said modestly, it's just the beginning, there's still a long way to go. City Lord Xia said, in my opinion, Sect Leader Jun's sect is like a sleeping dragon coiled around Iron Bone Mountain. The day it wakes up is the time to soar. This sentence touched Jun Chengshao. Because, the country in his previous life was described as an eastern dragon, slowly awakening after decades of development. One day, the dragon's roar will resound throughout the sky and earth. My country, my home. I don't know if I can go back in this life. If there is a possibility of changing the name, he may consider changing the sect to Huaxia, to remind himself that although he has transmigrated to another world, he is still a Huaxia soul. City Lord Xia said again, it is a great fortune for my Qingyang city to have such a sect with unlimited potential. Jun Chengshao said, thank you, City Lord, for your praise. Xia Guankuan chatted for a while and then set off to leave. When he walked to the foot of the mountain, he looked up at the mountain that was already lingering with spiritual energy, and said with a dignified look, Sect Leader Jun, please develop well. The 3.6 million people of Qingyang City will be deeply proud of the existence of Iron Bone. 3.6 million people, I'm being represented again, but I'm happy. In City Lord Xia's heart, Iron Bone was the hope of Qingyang City. As the saying goes, when a man achieves the Tao, his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. Sooner or later, the sect will be full of glory because of its strength. Because Jun Chengshao wanted to keep a low profile, City Lord Xia returned to Qingyang City and buried the news of Iron Bone being rated as one of the top 3 in his heart. It was obviously a big matter for the city, but he couldn't say it out loud. This was undoubtedly very painful. The head of the certification headquarters was even more painful. A top 3 sect with unlimited potential appeared in a 9th grade county. This kind of news must be announced to the public to make the county famous. However, Since Iron Bone chose to keep a low profile, he could only record it and not announce it to the public. Head Elder Zhou said, in this old man's opinion, sect leader Jun is worried that his reputation will attract unnecessary trouble, so he chose to keep a low profile. Yi Tianjian shook his head and said, the top 3 sects have special protection from the certification headquarters. He chose not to announce it to the public, which is equivalent to giving up this right. Ah. There is such a thing. If sect leader Jun knew, he would definitely break down. I'm fucking keeping a low profile because I'm worried that people are afraid of being famous, pigs are afraid of being fat. In the end, the top 3 sects have the protection of the certification headquarters. If I knew this would happen, I would have acted high profile. Chapter 274. Jun Changshao didn't care much about the evaluation of the top 3. So, he continued to train as usual. He continued to train and instruct his disciples as usual. In his opinion, the most important thing was to develop Iron Bone into the strongest sect on the falling star continent and remove the time bomb that was bound to its soul. Sigh. Li Luoqiu said, sect master chose to keep a low profile and missed the opportunity to make the sect famous. It's a pity. Jun Changshao sipped his tea and said, as long as Iron Bone is strong, there will be many more opportunities to make a name for ourselves. We don't lack this opportunity. Li Luoqiu said, what I mean is, if the outside world knows that our sect is rated as top 3, it will definitely attract many outstanding youths to sign up. Same. Jun Changshao said, it will also attract endless challenges from many sections. Li Luoqiu thought for a while and said, that's true. On the falling star continent, many people would take the initiative to challenge martial artists of higher realms, either to prove their strength or to fight for a position. There were also forces that were bored enough to challenge high-ranked and highly evaluated sections. Iron Bone was rated as top 3. Once the news spread, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. A top 3 sect in a 9th grade county. Many forces would definitely have doubts and come to challenge them. Iron Bone had just started and needed to develop slowly. It would definitely be very helpless to deal with challenges from various forces every day. Iron Bone disciples were deeply proud of their sect being rated as top 3, but they also worked even harder to cultivate because they couldn't be a burden. Just like that. The sect's martial cultivation style became stronger. With a sufficient supply of medicinal pills, Jun Changshao did not lack resources for the time being, so he focused on his own cultivation. 7th grade sect. This was only the second step. There were still 6th grade sects and even higher sects waiting to be surpassed. As the sect master, Jun Changshao had to improve his realm regardless of whether he was recognized by the certification center or not. At the beginning of the month, the AI family continued to hold the auction. After it was over, Master AI personally delivered the money, seeds, and medicinal herbs. After refining quite a few more pills, Jun Changshao murmured, I can't keep giving them out. I have to set up a pill pavilion and let the disciples collect them themselves. The other sects all had their own alchemy distribution organizations and arranged for their elders. If a disciple wanted to receive an elixir, it was either based on their contribution or their cultivation base. Because there were no elders in Iron Bone, Jun Changshao opened the elixir pavilion, and the members of the medicine hall were temporarily responsible for distributing the elixirs. Of course, they wouldn't give it to just anyone. After all, they didn't have enough resources to sustain it for a long time. Jun Changshao also set the rules that disciples could receive a certain number of energy-gathering pills per month based on their rank. As for the body sculpting pills, meridian unlocking pills, and qi revolving pills, they were free to take them. In this way, the new disciples did not need Jun Changshao to distribute the pills, and they could go to the pill pavilion to collect them. The medicinal pill pavilion was just the beginning. Jun Changshao calculated that when there were enough ores to refine more weapons, he would set up a weapon pavilion and let the disciples who contributed to the sect receive them themselves. Lu Qianqian leaned against the door of the main hall and said indifferently, under the sect master's management, the sect is becoming more and more comprehensive. That's a must. Jun Changshao said. After a few months of development, if there were no changes, wouldn't his efforts be in vain? However, Lu Qianqian said coldly, compared to the real big sects, there's still a big gap. Jun Changshao said, no one can become a fatty in one go, so don't rush, take it slow. Lu Qianqian did not say anything, turned around and left. This woman was still as cold as ever. The disciples received the corresponding elixirs. They were either cultivating in the spiritual power array or tempering their bodies in the training room or the training tower. Jun Changshao, who had arranged everything, continued to cultivate and break through to the 8th grade martial master realm. Unfortunately, as the realm increased, the difficulty of cultivation also increased. Even with the high multiplier qi gathering pills, it would take at least more than a month. The development of the sect had to be done slowly. Cultivation would definitely have to be done step by step. Just like that, a month passed peacefully. During this period, a daily strength test was held, and the disciples who improved faster also received corresponding rewards. The 4th batch of medicinal herbs in the medicinal garden had also matured under the careful cultivation of Elder Wei and the members. They had also provided Sect Master Jun with many high multiplier qi gathering pills. What he cared about the most was the 200,000 medicinal herbs planted around the sect. Once they matured again, not only could they replenish a large number of pills, but they could also make the Iron Bone Mountain spiritual energy even better. Half a month later, the 2nd batch of medicinal herbs had matured. Because they had been planted before, the growth cycle of the 200,000 medicinal herbs was faster, and the strength of their spiritual energy was higher than before. Jun Changshao happily refined more than 30,000 qi gathering pills to replenish the pills in the pill pavilion, allowing the disciples to have sufficient martial arts resources. What was even more satisfying was that, as the 2nd batch of medicinal herbs matured, the spiritual energy they released filled the mountain top, and it was even more spiritual. Elder Wei led the members of the medicinal hall and continued to plant the 3rd batch of seeds. As long as the money was in place, the Iron Bone Mountain would naturally be slowly transformed into a treasure land filled with spiritual energy. Hoo. In the room, after a night of cultivation, the spiritual energy in Jun Changxiao's Dantian cyclone had reached its peak and was constantly transforming. His entire body was releasing a thick heaven and earth attribute. An hour later, the spiritual energy began to converge and return to the body. Jun Changxiao exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and gradually opened his eyes. 2 rays of light flashed past. This meant that his realm had already entered the 8th stage from the 7th stage. Because of the magical tendon changing jing and pills, it took less than 2 months. It could be said that it was quite fast. Bang! He punched the testing machine and displayed a strength of 110,000 jin. TSK Tisk. The system sighed, the host's current strength is already ahead of even the most outstanding genius. It is completely comparable to an ordinary 2nd stage wuzong. Jun Changshao said with dissatisfaction, according to the current improvement, even if I reach the peak of martial master, I won't be able to use my own strength to control the green dragon crescent blade. The system said, after breaking through wuzong, your strength will increase greatly. At that time, the host will not need to borrow the help increase talisman and will be able to use it steadily. Yes. After breaking through, Jun Changshao continued to cultivate. In the end, he sadly realized that it would take at least 4 to 5 months to become a 9th grade martial master. There were only 4 months left before he went to challenge the Sacred Spring Sect. There was no hope for him to break through to the peak of martial master. Unless, Jun Changshao waved his hand and said, use spirit stones. Although the high multiplier qi gathering pill could increase the speed of the spiritual energy gathered in the spirit stones was purer, so it would definitely be faster to absorb it. Usually, sect leader Jun was reluctant to use it. After all, one pill was 10,000 taels, which was simply burning money. Before challenging the Sacred Spring Sect, he could only rely on spirit stones to break through to the peak of martial master. Chapter 275. In the month that Jun Changshao had been cultivating seriously, Yi Xingqian had successfully advanced from a peak martial disciple to a martial master. His spirit root and resources were on par with Li Qingyang and the others. He was able to catch up because of his previous life's martial Dao experience and because he had cultivated the Taixuan Sutra. Speaking of which, Li Qingyang and the others did not have rich martial Dao experience, nor did they have a cultivation method above the divine grade. They were able to catch up with Night Emperor and not be left far behind. This showed how powerful the martial Dao resources that Jun Changshao had provided for his disciples were. This was the Iron Bone clan. With the system's resources, as long as one's aptitude was not too bad and was willing to work hard, they could also quickly become stronger. As a reincarnated martial emperor, Yi Xingqian was a proper main character template. Being in the sect, his monstrous aura seemed to have weakened a lot. No. He was still very strong. This kind of strength would become more and more obvious with the various resources and the Taixuan Sutra. As for Li Qingyang, Shao Ziji, and the others, they would not be discouraged by being one step behind their junior brother. They continued to cultivate diligently. A few more days passed. They had successively transformed their spirit energy and successfully advanced from a martial disciple to a martial master, opening a new chapter of martial Dao. Sect Master. One day, Li Qingyang said, "Junior brother Li has also broken through to a martial master. Among the inner disciples, only junior brother Tian is still a peak martial disciple. This was because his aptitude was high grade. Because of the fucking purchase restriction, Jun Changshao could only rely on the hidden rewards from completing missions if he wanted to obtain the supreme grade aptitude transformation liquid. No rush, no rush. Tian Qi would transform into a supreme grade spirit root sooner or later. As for the cold eldest senior sister, she would definitely have entered the martial master realm long ago." In this way, there were already 7 martial master disciples in the Iron Bone clan. This kind of strength was comparable to a 6th-rate sect. This was not enough. They had to become stronger. There were only 4 months left to challenge the Sacred Spring Sect. Jun Changshao distributed 50 spirit stones to each inner disciple, hoping to increase their rank as soon as possible. With sufficient spirit stones to absorb, how could the disciples of the other sects compete? Sect Master Jun, don't go too far. As the date of Iron Bone's challenge to the Sacred Spring Sect approached, the cultivators of the Azure Sun County would often discuss it. Although Iron Bone had done a lot of things during this period of time, most people were still not optimistic. After all, they were challenging a 5th-rate sect. This kind of large sect that had both resources and heritage was definitely not something that a new sect could contend with. While most people were not optimistic about it, City Lord Xia thought that it was possible. After all, after witnessing the sect certification, he understood that many disciples of Iron Bone had the ability to fight above their level. Sect Master Jun, City Lord Xia said, "Go challenge the Sacred Spring Sect. This Xia will represent Green Sun City's 3,600,000 citizens to go to the Sacred Spring Mountain to cheer for you." Jun Changshao rolled his eyes at him and said, "So, this is the reason why you came to my Iron Bone today?" The two of them were currently sitting in the Iron Bone cafeteria. There were 8 dishes on the table and a jar of fine wine. City Lord Xia smiled and said, "Sect Master Jun is serving the dishes, this Xia is serving the wine. How can this be a freeloader?" As he spoke, he raised his chopsticks and ate with a blissful expression. Lu Wancher's culinary skills were too good. After eating it once, he felt like he was chewing wax when he returned to the Azure Sun City. Jun Changshao could still afford a meal, so he drank with City Lord Xia to his heart's content. During this time, they talked about the interesting stories of the pugilistic world. After 3 rounds of wine, Xie Guangquan sighed and a worried expression appeared on his face. City Lord Xie, why are you sighing? Jun Changshao asked. Xie Guangquan drank a mouthful of wine and said, this Xie received news that a few strong counties in southwest Yangzhou are actively recruiting soldiers and buying horses. I'm afraid that there will be a war soon. Jun Changshao said, war without a country. Every county in southwest Yangzhou is equivalent to a country. They often wage war for resources. This is a game played by the strong counties. Why is City Lord Xie worried? This Xie is afraid that some strong counties will expand their territory and devour our small Azure Sun County. Jun Changshao was silent. The 9th-tier Azure Sun County was the weakest county in southwest Yangzhou. If a strong county wanted to expand their territory, they would definitely be the first target. Xie Guangquan said, thousands of years ago, there were more than 500 counties in southwest Yangzhou. Today, there are only 200 left. Then the 300 counties were destroyed? Jun Changshao asked. That's right. Xie Guangquan drank a mouthful of wine as the worry on his face deepened. Our Azure Sun County was able to survive the war because of its remote location. However, we will be destroyed sooner or later if we continue to live under the influence of so many experts. Moreover, he paused for a moment and said, the 6th-tier True Sun County's county governor is very ambitious and is not far from our county. Once he starts a war, not to mention Azure Sun County, even the 8th-tier True Sun County will be destroyed. Jun Changshao drank a cup of wine and said, I thought that the world was peaceful. I didn't expect our Azure Sun County to be in such a dangerous situation. Thank you, Mayor. He put down his cup and said seriously, I, Iron Bone, am a citizen of Azure Sun City. If a war breaks out, I will fight for my home. Swoosh. Xie Guangquan stood up and raised his cup. I salute Sect Master Jun on behalf of the 3.6 million citizens of Azure Sun City. Jun Changshao stood up with his cup of wine and said, it's a little too grand. After drinking the wine, he sat down. Oh right. He asked curiously, Mayor Xie, who is the county governor of Azure Sun County? The mayor was only in charge of the city's affairs. The county governor controlled the entire county and was the mayor's direct superior. Not to mention Jun Changshao who transmigrated, even the locals of Azure Sun County didn't know much about the county governor. They had even forgotten that there was such a boss. Sigh. Xie Guangquan said helplessly, the county governor of Azure Sun County is very secretive. I have only seen him twice in the past few decades since I took over as the mayor. So secretive? Jun Changshao was stunned. Xie Guangquan shook his head and said, he is so secretive that he hasn't asked about the county's affairs in the past few decades. However, he paused and said seriously, the county governor is very strong. He defeated the county governor of a grade 8 county in the county competition a few decades ago. Is that so? Jun Changshao asked curiously, what is the name of our county governor? How old is he? What is his realm? Xie Guangquan said, the county governor is called Yunhe. He is about 30 to 40 years old. Based on the fact that he defeated the county governor of a grade 8 county, he is at least a grade 8 wuzong. Yunhe. This name was enough to be a wild crane. As for the grade 8 wuzong, it surprised Jun Changshao. An expert of this level could be an elder of a fifth-rate sect. Do you have a specific appearance? Such a mysterious county governor piqued Jun Changshao's interest. He wanted to know more about him. County Governor Yun likes to wear a blue robe and never leaves his wine gourd. He doesn't look old, but he has a head of white hair, Xie Guangquan said. He has quite a personality. Jun Changshao noted it down and said, if there is a chance, I hope to meet this wild county governor. It's a little difficult. Xie Guangquan said, County Governor Yun comes and goes like a shadow. No one knows if he is in the county now or if he has gone to other counties for sightseeing. As the county governor of a county, he doesn't care about anything and doesn't ask about anything. How enviable. Jun Changshao also wanted to be a hands-off boss and leave the matters to Li Qingyang and the others. He wanted to travel around the falling star continent. However, with the main mission, he could only do his best to develop. Wild Crane. Travel the world. This kind of happy life could only be experienced when the sect became the strongest sect. Come, let's drink. P.S. New week, come, recommendation tickets, monthly tickets. Chapter 276. After drinking with City Lord Xia, Jun Changshao understood that although the world seemed peaceful, there were undercurrents. If a war were to break out in southwest Yangzhou, there was a possibility that Azure Sun County would be destroyed. When the nest was overturned, how could there be an unbroken egg? Iron Bone was in Azure Sun City. Once the flames of war spread, it would definitely be affected. Thus, helping City Lord Xia was also helping himself. We still need time. Jun Changshao said. The sect was still in its infancy. If a war broke out in other counties and attacked Azure Sun County, it would definitely be difficult to organize forces to resist. As long as they had enough time, they would have the strength to protect themselves. How long would it take? Naturally, the longer, the better. Of course. Jun Changshao also didn't want to be some savior. If a war really came, he would only protect Azure Sun City where the sect was located. As for the other cities, for the sake of the AI clan, if he had the ability, he would naturally do his best to help. If he really couldn't, he could only focus on defense. Sect leader Jun didn't have the ambition to conquer the world. That was something for the emperor to do. As a sect leader, how could he overstep his authority? Hall Master Li, in the main hall, Jun Changshao said, order the members of Drizzle Hall to buy a large amount of ores in each city. War didn't only rely on people, but also on equipment. Regardless of whether they could use it to refine, it was definitely not wrong to buy it first. Li Luoqiu said, war is about economics. It won't start immediately. Sect leader is thinking too much. Be prepared for danger in times of peace. Jun Changshao said. All right. Li Luoqiu rubbed her jade hands and said, you have to pay. Jun Changshao threw a few interspatial rings over. Li Luoqiu counted them and found that there was a total of 50 million taels. Thus, she was a little confused and asked, how much does sect leader plan to buy? Jun Changshao handed over cold-edged sword and other materials that could be refined. He said, buy according to the ores here first. If there aren't any, then buy other ores. Li Luoqiu summoned Viper and the others and distributed the banknotes. She ordered them to go to the 8 cities in Qingyang City as fast as possible to purchase the items. The members of the Drizzle Hall who had learned the cloud treading steps were very efficient in their work. In just 2 or 3 days, they were able to purchase the items one after another. The cold-edged sword, overlord spear, and unyielding iron shield had all been replenished. He had also purchased a lot of other ores of different quality. As for the 50 million taels, it was naturally all spent. Since Jun Changshao wanted to prepare for a rainy day, he naturally wouldn't be stingy with money. While cultivating, he opened the forging pavilion and began to forge weapons and equipment. After a round of inventory, he had refined over 200 cold-edged swords and over 300 overlord spears. Because he had obtained a large amount of iron ore from the Shao family, he had refined over 700 unyielding iron shields. Even so, it was impossible to equip 1,000 disciples with weapons and shields. The ambitious governor knew when the war would start. Therefore, after forging a lot of equipment and hoarding ores, Jun Changshao continued to cultivate. During this period, he had been taking qi gathering pills and absorbing spirit stones. The speed of his spiritual energy accumulation could be said to be quite fast. In just 1.5 months, he had broken through from 8th grade to 9th grade martial master. There was a high improvement, but there was also a high cost. In 40 days, Sect leader Jun had absorbed 450 spirit cores. On average, he used 10 spirit cores a day. Not counting chi gathering pills, just spirit stones. This guy had to spend 100,000 taels a day. He was really burning money. With his cultivation, even the patriarch of a 4th or 5th grade sect might not be able to afford it. The inner court disciples also cultivated with chi gathering pills and spirit stones. Their cultivation had increased significantly. Yi Xingqian had become a 4th grade martial master. Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others had become 3rd grade martial masters. Tian Qi, who had a high-grade spiritual root, broke through to martial master one step later. Although he had spirit stones, he had just become a 2nd grade martial master. At this time, there were less than 3 months left before the challenge to the Sacred Spring Sect. If there were enough spirit stones, it wouldn't be difficult to reach 5th grade martial master on average. But there was no more. On the other hand, chi gathering pills had been harvested and planted by Elder Wei and the others. It had formed a virtuous cycle and they were self-sufficient. Although the high multiplier chi gathering pills were good, as one's cultivation increased, taking them all the time would take up a lot of time. It was already very good. If the martial artists of the outside world knew that the Iron Bone inner court disciples were replenished with 10 to 15 times the normal amount of chi gathering pills, they would definitely vomit blood in envy. Jun Changshao made up his mind and personally went down the mountain to Qingyang City. He spent 20 million to buy 2,000 spirit stones for himself and his disciples to cultivate and prepare for the challenge to the Sacred Spring Sect. The 100 million sent by clan head AI was spent on seeds, ores, and so many spirit stones. There wasn't much left. There was already a huge gap between them and the sects with deep foundations. If he didn't rely on the system and large amounts of money, how could he overtake them? During this period of cultivation, the sect held a small sect competition once every 3 months and a monthly strength test. Even if he used the great art of spring and autumn to speed up the process of time, this kind of thing still had to be done. It didn't mean that it didn't happen just because it wasn't written. Similarly, clan head AI would send resources to the sect and the medicine hall would harvest and replant the herbs. 2 months later. There were only 10 days left before the challenge to the Sacred Spring Sect. The discussions in the outside world became more and more intense. Many martial artists were constantly paying attention to the latest news. For example, had Iron Bone set off yet? The people of the 100 Sect Alliance had even placed spies at the foot of the mountain. As long as Jun Changshao set off with his disciples, they would immediately head to the Sacred Spring Sect. Cheer for Iron Bone? Impossible. They had to go and watch the joke. They had to ridicule them like brainless villains to forcefully show off their existence. The reason why they didn't set off in advance and even sent spies was because they were afraid that Iron Bone would back out and abandon the challenge. The 100 Sect Alliance's intention was very simple. Since they had issued a challenge to the Sacred Spring Sect, they had to fight like men. They couldn't back down. In Azure Sun City, City Lord Xia had already started to arrange matters to free up enough time to cheer for Iron Bone. In this aspect, Clan AI performed better. They didn't even hesitate to postpone the challenge because it was close to the auction. When all the other forces didn't have high hopes for Iron Bone, City Lord Xia and Clan AI were still able to stand firm. This was a true sign of a friend in need. The day of the challenge approached. The originally peaceful Azure Sun County became lively. The other forces in the other counties also started to move. An 8th-rate sect challenging a 5th-rate sect was unprecedented. Naturally, they had to go to the Sacred Spring Sect to watch the show. Miaohua Palace was filled with spiritual energy. Shi Jingxian sat in a picturesque pavilion and said, "Sect head Jun is going to challenge the Sacred Spring Sect soon. 10 more days." Lear muttered in her heart. It had been more than half a year since the auction. Why was Palace Master still thinking about Iron Bone? Prepare, prepare. Shi Jingxian said, go to the sacred spring sect. Yes. Junior sister Murong. On a county's official road, a woman in a tight outfit said, I heard that an unrated sect is going to challenge a fifth-rate sect. Do you want to go and watch the show? She was pretty, but compared to the junior sister walking in front of her, she was obviously inferior. The woman walking in front of her was about 16 or 17 years old. She was dressed in blue, had snow-white skin, a slender figure, an oval-shaped face, and willowy eyebrows. She exuded a noble aura. This was Xiao Ziji's ex-fiancé, Murong Xian. The cultivators on the road seemed to know that the two were disciples of the Lily Holy Sect. They all avoided them with fear in their eyes. An unrated sect? Murong Xian said. The senior sister said, I think it's called Iron Something Sect. Oh, right, it's the trash who had a marriage agreement with you. Iron Bone Upright Sect. Murong Xian was silent for a moment and said, the training is over. There's still plenty of time. Why don't we go and take a look? Junior sister. The senior sister said with a smile, you've already broken through to 9th grade martial master. You're the fastest among the new disciples. You'll definitely get a good result in the upcoming sect competition. It's all because of elders' good teaching. Murong Xian said humbly. The senior sister said, how can that trash from the Azure Sun County be worthy of a genius like you? It was a wise decision to break the engagement. Murong Xian frowned and said, senior sister, can we not talk about him? P.S. Please recommend me, monthly vote, and thank you for your tips. Chapter 277. There were only 10 days left before the challenge to the Holy Spring Sect. It wasn't short, but it wasn't long either. In these few days, Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others stopped cultivating and began to adjust their states to better prepare for the upcoming battle. Then, what were their current realms? Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, Su Xiaoma, and Li Fei had already broken through to the 5th grade. Tian Qi was a 4th grade martial master and was only one step away from the 5th grade. Yi Xingqian, who cultivated the Taishian Sutra, was still ahead of them and had already broken through to the 6th grade. It wasn't just the inner disciples. Some outer disciples with good aptitudes had also broken through to the peak of the martial disciple realm in these few months. Long Xiang and Yang Yuhua were the first to enter the martial master realm. Because they weren't inner disciples, they only had access to qi gathering pills, so they had just entered the 1st grade. Other than Yao Menjing, who didn't cultivate, all the new disciples had broken through to the martial disciple realm and were all above the 2nd grade. Because of the body-shaping pills and the shaping room, they were far stronger than martial artists of the same level. If the two elders of the certification hall were to come again, they would definitely be deeply shocked. Of course, Iron Bone disciples didn't cultivate foolishly. They would also put their minds on comprehending cultivation techniques, so that martial arts and martial arts could progress together. Li Luoqiu had also entered the 7th grade from the 6th grade. This woman had always been focused on hidden weapons and movement techniques, so her realm didn't increase too quickly. Viper and Lynx had entered the 4th grade. They were previously gold medal assassins and relied on the sect's resources to enter the martial master realm from the martial disciple realm. After Li Qingyang's inventory, there were already more than 20 disciples who had reached the martial master realm. They had already met the 10 martial masters requirement to be promoted to a 6th-rate sect. Now, Iron Bone only lacked the sect leader to enter Wuzong. With another 510 disciples at the 12th stage of the channel opening realm, they could be promoted to the 6th rate. The sect still had 1,000 spots for disciples. They just needed to recruit them. If Jun Changshao couldn't break through to Wuzong, even if all the disciples met the requirements, it wouldn't be enough. Someone would ask. Couldn't the sect leader's strength be comparable to Wuzong? No. The certification center first looked at one's realm, then one's strength. He couldn't do without either of them. From the looks of it, it would take some time for Iron Bone to reach the 6th grade. According to the previous pace, as long as Jun Changshao reached the end of a certain realm, he would receive an epic quest. If he couldn't complete the mission, his realm would always be stuck. Boom! Inside the training room, Su Xiaoma kicked the testing machine. The strength displayed was 80,000 jin. Su Xiaoma grinned. To be able to display such strength at the level of a 5th grade martial master, only a top genius would be able to do so. Under normal circumstances, the first requirement for a top genius was to have a saint grade or divine grade spiritual root. Although Su Xiaoma only had a supreme grade spirit root, with the tempering of the body shaping elixir and the training tower, he had made up for the difference in his spirit root. He was already on par with the top geniuses. An ordinary person with ordinary talent who was destined to be mediocre would become a top genius a year later. This was Jun Changxiao's teaching. It was still not enough. His target was, let the disciple become a proud son of heaven, an existence revered by all. The admiration of all living beings. That's right, he had stepped into the martial emperor realm. Boom! Xiao Ziji punched the testing machine. The strength displayed was 83,000 jin. Su Xiaoma, who was originally a little proud, grabbed his hair and broke down. At the same level, junior brother Xiao is actually 3,000 jin stronger than me. Xiao Ziji smiled. Senior brother Su, in terms of speed, I am far behind you. Su Xiaoma immediately felt balanced. Li Qingyang walked over and said, junior brother Xiao's physical strength is also not comparable to ours. Su Xiaoma, who had just found her balance, immediately leaned against the wall with tears in her eyes when she heard what second senior brother said. Boom! Li Qingyang punched the testing machine. The strength displayed was 85,000 jin. His strength was 2,000 jin higher than Xiao Ziji's because the former had not opened his meridians and was leading when he focused on cultivating his physical body. Boom! Boom! Tian Qi and Li Fei tested one after another. The strength displayed was 60,000 jin and 78,000 jin respectively. With the same amount of resources and hard work, the difference in strength between people of the same level would not be too big. Tian Qi's strength was only 60,000 jin. Firstly, he was only a grade 4 martial master. Secondly, he had a high-grade spirit root. Su Xiaoma and Li Fei focused on body techniques. Although their strength was slightly weaker, they had their own specialties. Xiao Ziji focused on body tempering. When facing a grade 5 fire dragon, even if he could not completely withstand it, it should not be a problem for him to fight a few rounds. Junior brother Yi, come and try too, Li Qingyang said. Yi Xingqian walked over. He gathered spiritual energy in his fist and punched the testing machine. It was obvious that his strength was 90,000 jin. Oh my god, junior brother Yi is so powerful. He entered the sect later than us, but his strength is actually 5,000 jin higher than second senior brothers. Junior brother, how did you do it? Su Xiaoma and Li Fei exclaimed. Yi Xingqian did not speak. He said helplessly in his heart, I have the Taishian Sutra and am a grade 6 martial master. Yet, I am only 5,000 jin higher than Li Qingyang. Of course. Jun Changshao had given them so many resources. If Night Emperor could leave them far behind, wouldn't it prove that everything provided by the system could not compare to the reincarnation of a martial emperor? Actually, Yi Xingqian was wrong. He should not be thinking about how much stronger he was compared to Li Qingyang and the others. Instead, he should be thinking about how big the gap was between him and the grade 6 martial master of his previous life. Very big. Although he had a divine grade spirit root in his previous life, he had to work hard for all the resources. He took 3 years to become a grade 6 martial master and his strength was only about 70,000. In this life, he took a year to reach grade 6 and his strength was 20,000 jin higher. What was the reason? Although the Taishian Sutra played a part, it only accounted for 20%. The 80% was due to the various martial arts resources provided by Jun Changshao. Huff huff. In the study, strong spiritual energy whizzed out of Jun Changshao's body. It lasted for about an hour before it began to converge. Shwa. He opened his eyes and 2 rays of light flashed. At this point, he had stepped into the peak of Martial Master from Grade 9 Martial Master. In 2 months, he had stepped into the peak of Martial Master from Grade 9 Martial Master. This meant that as long as he had enough resources, it was not difficult to break through quickly. Ding! Host has stepped into the peak of Martial Master. Requirement met. Epic mission activated. Sure enough, it came again. Jun Changshao opened the data panel. Under the Sect mission appeared an epic mission. The content was lead disciples to challenge the Sacred Spring Sect, incomplete. This mission was actually related to the Sacred Spring Sect. He clicked on the details. Epic Mission, 3. Mission details: Host, please lead disciples to the Sacred Spring Mountain within a month and challenge the 5th-rate Sacred Spring Sect. Mission requirements: Disciple must defeat 0/3 of the Sacred Spring Sect's direct disciples, 0/10 of the Sacred Spring Sect's inner disciples, and 0/30 of the Sacred Spring Sect's outer disciples. Mission failure: did not go to the Sacred Spring Sect within the time limit. Could not defeat the Sacred Spring Sect's disciples during the mission period. Mission reward? It seems quite simple, Jun Changshao said. The big boss of the second epic mission was a Grade 5 fire dragon. No matter how powerful the Sacred Spring Sect's direct disciples were, could they be stronger than a Grade 5 Wuzong beast? The system said, the host defeated the fire dragon with the help of hard-to-stop saber. Disciple was almost wiped out by it. Jun Changshao was silent. P.S. 5 chapters. Requesting recommendation votes, requesting monthly votes. Chapter 278. The third epic mission was related to the Sacred Spring Sect, which was a good idea. After all, Jun Changshao was going to take his disciples there to challenge it. If he could complete it, not only would he be able to display his prowess to the sect, he would also be able to obtain contribution points and break through to Wuzong. It could be said to be killing 3 birds with 1 stone. However, there would be a big change in the plan for the challenge. At first, Jun Changshao thought that it would be enough to bring the inner disciples and Zhou Hong, but judging from the number of missions, he could only bring the outer disciples. According to the normal rules of the challenge, each person would fight 1 match. That would require 43 disciples. Furthermore, Jun Changshao did not expect to win all the battles this time. Therefore, after some consideration, he decided to bring 50 disciples with him. Needless to say, the 25 people who had participated in the Death Valley trial would definitely follow. Li Tiantian, Sima Zhongda, and the others were naturally present. After all, they had entered the sect earlier, and their cultivation levels were higher than those who came later. Disciples like Lin Jianghang and Cui Bujian were also sent out. Although Song Xianzhou had entered the sect late, his aptitude and cultivation level were high, so he would definitely follow along. Sect leader Jun went through a round of selection, and all the Iron Bone disciples were sent out. Of course, he didn't send Viper and Mountain Cat. After all, they were too old and didn't look like disciples. Sect leader. At the entrance of the canteen, Ma Yongning hugged his saber and asked, "Can I go?" When this guy joined the sect, although he often helped Lu Wancher take care of the canteen, it did not affect his cultivation in the slightest. Furthermore, he was a dedicated saber cultivator. Due to the fact that sword and saber cultivation required one's aptitude and were extremely extreme, they were relatively rare on the Starfall continent. "You're too old," Jun Changshao said. These words were like a sharp sword stabbing into Ma Yongning's heart. It was so painful that he found it difficult to breathe. "Sect leader," he said in a low voice, "I just look a little old." My actual age is only 29 years old. Fuck. If he didn't mention it, one would suspect that he was in his 40s or 50s. The corner of Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched as he said, she looks even more anxious than Yang Yuhua. Ma Yongning said with a dignified look, please let me fight and prove to the head with my strength, prove to do. He wanted to fight because of Lu Wanshi. That little girl would often sit in the cafeteria with her chin propped up on her hand, looking at the disciples cultivating outside and muttering to herself, I really hope that when I go to challenge the Sacred Spring Sect, the sect master would bring me along, to watch the show. Ma Yongning asked. Lu Wanshi said seriously, let's go cheer for our senior brothers. The seemingly careless words touched Ma Yongning. He secretly decided that he had to challenge the Sacred Spring Sect and use his strength to defeat his opponent and make Lu Wanshi happy. Just yesterday, the little girl had finally obtained the right to follow the sect master to the Sacred Spring Sect after pestering him endlessly, so he naturally had to participate in the battle. Clang! Ma Yongning unsheathed his saber and said, Sect leader, please respect a bladesman. Otherwise, I will immediately commit suicide in front of you. Jun Changxiao's mouth twitched. Lu Wanshi took care of him with just a few bowls of rice. How dare you talk about respect? However, since he had to go, he said, I can go, but it depends on the situation. I'll decide whether or not I'll fight. All right. Ma Yongning sheathed his blade. 1 and 2 also walked over and said, Sect leader, we are much younger than him. Can we fight for the sect? Hearing this, Ma Yongning almost pulled out his saber and challenged the two bastards to a battle of dignity. 1 and 2 were indeed very young. They were only in their early 20s, and they had already entered the realm of peak martial disciple. Jun Changxiao decided to bring the two of them along. The number of participants increased from 50 to 53. Then, Jun Changxiao chose another 147 outer disciples, making a total of 200. In an away battle, they had to have momentum, so the purpose of the outer disciples following was to cheer for the disciples who were going to fight. After everything was settled, there were still 5 days before the day of the challenge. Jun Changxiao gathered the disciples early in the morning. The disciples all knew that the sect leader was going to bring their senior brothers to challenge the fifth-rate Sacred Spring Sect, so they gathered at the martial arts practice field, lined up neatly, and all of them held their heads high. Jun Changxiao stood in front of the main hall and said, this battle may be difficult, but we have to let the world know that even if there is a mountain in front of us, we, the Iron Bone Clan, can overcome it. Be an Iron Bone Clan, do Iron Bone Clan's things. All the disciples had their hands behind their backs as they shouted loudly. Their voices resounded in the sky above the sect, revealing the aura of iron bones. Shua! Jun Changxiao waved his hand and said, let's go. Yes. Under his lead, the 53 disciples who had participated in the battle and 147 disciples walked out of the sect in a grandiose manner and walked down the mountain path. Li Luoqiu watched them leave and said, Sect leader, the celebratory wine has been prepared. I and the disciples will wait for your triumphant return. Yes. Jun Changxiao said. After the disciples sent them off, they returned to the sect and began to cultivate even more crazily. They wanted to become stronger and fight for the sect's supreme glory in the future. On this day, the 200 disciples of the Iron Bone clan left the Iron Bone Mountain under the lead of the second sect leader and walked towards the unreachable mountain in the distance. In this battle, they would either succeed or die. The Iron Bone clan has set off. Go and report to the alliance leader. The spies squatting at the foot of the mountain hurriedly sent the news to the Grand Qi sect. Jun Changxiao had already noticed these people, but because they were just spying, he did not pay attention to them. Not long after, the news reached Qin Haoran's ears. He smiled coldly and said, Jun Changxiao really dares to challenge the Sacred Spring Sect. The Long Blade sect leader grinned and said, in the Sacred Spring Mountain, he boasted in front of so many people. If he doesn't go, how can he establish himself in the Jianghu? Situ Wang, who was spat out blood, said indifferently, a junior who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Go and experience the fear of a fifth-rate sect. Let's go. Qin Haoren said, let's go too. Not long after Jun Changshao left, dozens of elders of the 100 Sect Alliance led their disciples and headed towards the Sacred Spring Sect. The Iron Bone clan challenging the Sacred Spring Sect was a magnificent feat that had never happened before. As a sect in the same county, they should have supported them. But this time, they were just going to watch a joke. Someone was going to support and cheer them on. Who? Xie Guanquan and the AI family. As a matter of fact, when Jun Changshao walked out of the Iron Bone mountain range, he saw City Lord Xia and more than a dozen Green Sun City's patriarchs. Sect leader Jun, Xie Guanquan clasped his hands and said, family heads, and I represent the 3.6 million citizens of Qingyang City. We are willing to travel with the Iron Bone clan. Thank you. Jun Changshao clasped his hands and said. To be able to support him at this time made him very grateful. He also deeply understood that at least there were still people who supported him. Father. Li Qingyang shouted at his father. Family head Li said, my son, the Li family is proud of you. Sect leader Jun, when Jun Changshao was about to leave, Ai Shang brought Ai Shang Fang and Ai Shang Ku over from another road. Behind them were many family heads of Huyang City, including Song Xuanzhou's father, Old Man Song. Who said that the protagonist must bear the fate of being the enemy of the whole world? Who said that the whole world is plotting against the protagonist? No. In this cruel world, there was also friendship. Even if this friendship was built on business, to challenge the Sacred Spring Sect and dare to accompany him, this was an iron relationship. Everyone. Jun Changshao said, today, you have cheered for my Iron Bone. Jun will remember this kindness in his heart. In the future, if you need my Iron Bone, I will do my best to help. His words were very serious. But the people who came with him only smiled. They would never have thought that sect leader Jun's words would be so hard to ask for in the future, so precious. Chapter 279. There were many places with abundant spirit qi in the falling star continent. Many sects would choose to build near mountains and rivers. A few thousand miles away from the Azure Sun County, there was such a mountain. The mountain was filled with spirit qi and the mountain spring contained boundless spirit qi. It was called the Sacred Spring, hence the name Sacred Spring Mountain. 800 years ago, an expert came here to establish a sect. He established the Sacred Spring Sect and worked hard to develop it. Today, it had become a fifth-rate sect and had a pivotal position in the surrounding thousands of miles. Many martial artists believed that the Sacred Spring Sect's achievements today had a lot to do with the Sacred Spring. Drinking the water all year round would definitely be of great help to one's martial Tao. Unfortunately, martial artists who were not from the sect could not drink it. On this day, in front of the Sacred Spring Sect that was filled with spirit qi, various forces came in an endless stream. They climbed up the stone stairs that had hundreds of years of history. A fifth-rate sect is indeed majestic. A martial artist looked at the rich spirit qi gathered at the mountainside with envy. If not for Iron Bone challenging the Sacred Spring Sect, I'm afraid I wouldn't have the chance to enter such a large sect. Speaking of which, the 8th-rate sect in the Azure Sun County is really bold. They actually dared to challenge the Sacred Spring Sect with an egg. What wouldn't a new sect do to rise in status these days? It's okay to challenge a 6th-rate sect, but if they lose to a 5th-rate sect, they won't be able to survive in the pugilistic world. The martial artists who climbed up the Sacred Spring Mountain were discussing. They came from other counties. Although they were here to watch Iron Bone challenge the Sacred Spring Sect, they actually wanted to visit a large sect. Why? Because they did not take Iron Bone seriously at all. Once the challenge started, they would definitely be tortured badly. If it was a 6th-rate sect, they might still be optimistic. However, no one in their right mind would think that an 8th-rate sect could win against a 5th-rate sect. The Sacred Spring sect was really big. Just the outer courtyard's martial arts field was comparable to the venue of the Great Sect Tournament in Liang City. The main hall was incomparably majestic and exuded an ancient aura. One look and one could tell that it was very old. This was the foundation of a sect that had been established for 800 years. Even some new 5th-rate sects might not be able to compare. After the various cultivators came in, they looked at the unique architecture and the solemn hall, and all of them were filled with awe and veneration. As expected of a large sect. Just by standing at the entrance of the outer courtyard, a feeling of worship rose in his heart. However, when they saw the disciples with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes bustling back and forth, and the auras they emitted were all at the martial disciple level, they were deeply shocked. Who hadn't seen a martial disciple before? However, the martial disciples of the Sacred Spring sect, just from their auras alone, were at the middle to high level. The martial Tao realms on the Starfall continent were further divided into ordinary, intermediate, advanced, and extreme levels. Let's talk about the martial disciple level. Every rank had a strength increase of about 1,000–2,000. Those with the lowest increase in strength would be called ordinary martial disciples. Those who reached 1,500 would be called intermediate, and those who reached 2,000 would be advanced. An extreme martial disciple could reach 2,500. The increase in strength depended on one's talent and various other factors. Therefore, extreme-grade martial disciples were often referred to as top geniuses. Then, what was the difference between an extreme-grade and an ordinary-grade martial disciple? Yes. And it was very big. Let's take a peak martial disciple as an example. The strength of an ordinary martial disciple was at most 12,000 jin, and the strength of an extreme martial disciple was at least 25,000 jin. With a difference of 2 times, an extreme-grade martial disciple could easily defeat an ordinary-grade martial disciple. The Sacred Spring sect disciples bustling about in the outer courtyard walked steadily and emitted a strong aura. At a glance, the elders of various forces could tell that they were definitely at the middle to high level. It was already good enough for their own sect to have a few middle to high-level martial disciples. The 5th-rate sects could be seen everywhere. This was a huge gap. Everyone. At this moment, a graceful disciple walked over and said in a cultured and refined manner, "The room has been arranged. Please follow me." Everyone was shocked again. This disciple should be less than 20 years old, but he was a martial master. The aura he emitted was also very strong. He was definitely at the extreme level. He is one of the direct disciples of the Sacred Spring sect, named Qing Lin Feng. Is he the young master Lin Feng who went to the Flood Dragon village alone and killed more than 300 bandits with only a 3-foot-long sword? Tisk Tsk, a hero from a young age. Everyone followed behind with awe in their eyes. The Sacred Spring sect allowed a direct disciple with an extreme spiritual root to arrange a room for him. How honorable! Wait! At this moment, everyone's eyes stopped at the entrance to the inner courtyard. They saw a gentle and beautiful woman walking in surrounded by female disciples. That's the palace master of Miaohua Palace. My God, why is the patriarch of a 4th-rate sect here? Is she here to visit the Sacred Spring sect? Everyone was surprised. Qing Linfeng said, "Palace Master, she heard that Iron Bone is challenging the Sacred Spring sect, so she's here to watch the show." Everyone's mouth twitched. An 8th-rate sect challenging a 5th-rate sect was already unbelievable. It was hard to accept that the 4th-rate Miaohua Palace was involved. At this moment, 2 young girls walked out of the inner courtyard. The lily pattern on their shoulders was very eye-catching. Everyone's eyes widened. The lily pattern, could it be? Qing Linfeng said, "They are disciples of the Lily Holy Sect. They are also here to watch the show." Hiss. Everyone gasped. Iron Bone's challenge to the Sacred Spring sect had alarmed people from a second-rate sect. What kind of world was this? That young girl is Murong Xian, the genius of the Murong family in Tianhai City, right? TSK, I've heard of this girl. She has a supreme-grade spiritual root and is known as the pride of Tianhai County. The 11th elder of the Lily Holy Sect took a liking to her and personally went to the Murong family to take her as a disciple. It caused a huge commotion at that time. The most sensational thing is that she brought people from the Lily Holy Sect to the Shao family in Qingyang County to cancel the engagement. I heard that too. It seems that a supreme-grade spiritual root genius appeared in the 9th-rate county, but his cultivation regressed and he became a good-for-nothing. His fiancée, Murong Xian, divorced him. In the falling star continent, men divorce women. I didn't expect a woman to divorce a man. What a coward. Murong Xian's eyes flashed with anger when she heard everyone's discussion. Junior sister. The senior sister whispered, don't lower yourself to the level of these superficial men. Everyone saw Murong Xian's anger and quickly shut up. They obediently followed Qing Linfeng to the inner courtyard. The senior sister said, Junior sister, breaking off the engagement with that good-for-nothing is already in the past. But you can't stop others from talking, so don't mind it too much. Murong Xian didn't say anything and felt guilty. Only she knew that she wasn't angry because others were talking about her, but because they were laughing at Xiao Ziji. It was undeniable that the two of them had nothing to do with each other. But he became a laughing stock because she was too young and ignorant to break off the engagement. Xiao Ziji, I'm sorry. I just wanted to pursue freedom. I didn't want to hurt you. Murong Xian murmured in her heart. Was sorry useful? This was a matter of different people's opinions. But in Jun Changxiao's view, whether Murong Xian did it intentionally or not, her actions had caused a great injury to Xiao Ziji's dignity. 2 years later, he would definitely bring his disciples to the Lily Holy Sect to seek justice. In the previous world, young people didn't need to take legal responsibility. But in the falling star continent, since you did something wrong, you had to pay the price. Because here, the strong were respected. Really guilty? Sure, bring those people from the Lily Holy Sect who were full of superiority to the Shao family and come to my Iron Bone clan to apologize. That's your sincerity. Chapter 280. In just a few days, various forces entered the sacred spring sect one after another, experiencing the magnificence of a fifth-rate sect and its hundreds of years of history. Of course. Iron Bone was also waiting for the challenge. Calculating the time, there was only 1 day left until the day of the challenge. Why hadn't that overconfident sect arrived yet? Would he be scared? Would he not come? Many forces thought of this possibility, but they weren't too angry. After all, the purpose of this trip was to see a fifth-rate sect. Scared? Not coming. Sorry, it was dusk. Sect Master Jun led 200 disciples, accompanied by City Lord Xia and the AI family, to the mountain gate of the Sacred Spring sect. Who are you? The disciple guarding the gate asked. Swoosh. Jun Changxiao showed his waist token with the words, Iron Bone, engraved on it. He gathered qi in his dantian and shouted, Jun Changxiao, sect master of the Iron Bone sect, is here to challenge the Sacred Spring sect. His voice was sonorous and powerful, echoing halfway up the mountain and into the Sacred Spring sect. He's here, he's here. This Iron Bone sect master is standing at the foot of the mountain, but he dares to shout so loudly. He's got guts. If he's a coward, why would he come all the way to the Sacred Spring sect? I really can't wait. I want to see if this Iron Bone sect leader has 3 heads or 6 arms. No matter how many heads or arms he has, he's destined to lie down if he dares to challenge the Sacred Spring sect. All the martial artists discussed. Alliance Master Qin and the leaders of the alliance, who arrived first, were full of smiles. When they heard the various forces laughing at Jun Changxiao, they felt more comfortable than when they broke through. This was a group of pitiful people. Why? Because they couldn't do anything to Iron Bone in the Azure Sun County, so they could only use the discussions of other counties to comfort their long-suppressed souls. If Jun Changshao knew, he would definitely look at them with disdain. Only trash would use such a ridiculous way to comfort themselves. Shi Jingxian, who was sitting in the small hall in the inner courtyard, heard Jun Changxiao's voice and said with a smile, "It's him. He really came." Li curled her lips and said, "You really dare to come." Before and after coming to the Sacred Spring Sect, she had been telling the palace lord that Iron Bone might admit defeat and not dare to challenge them. Ha ha ha. Ma Yunteng, who was playing chess in a side room of the inner courtyard, placed down a chess piece and said with a smile, "Sect Master Jun is here." Wang Donglin said, "First he challenged the vast Qi sect, and now he's challenging the Sacred Spring Sect. This kid is really reckless." Young people. Ma Yunteng said, "It's not bad to be reckless." Coming. Murong Xian stood by the window of the wing room, complicated emotions rising in her heart. Although Xiao Ziji won the intersect tournament and made her look at him in a new light, wasn't following the Iron Bone sect leader to challenge the Sacred Spring sect asking for humiliation? Or could it be that after she broke off the engagement, she no longer cared about anything? AI. Murong Xian sighed. Back mountain of the Sacred Spring sect. Dai Lu, who was sitting cross-legged in a cave, heard the sound and opened his green eyes. He said coldly, "Jun Changshao, you're finally here." Brother Green Scarf accidentally obtained the devouring power at the foot of the Black Eagle sect. He devoured Elder Ghost's cultivation and broke through to the 7th grade martial disciple. After returning to the sect, he participated in the sect's intersect tournament and performed well. He was successfully promoted from an inner disciple to an outer disciple. Of course, he didn't dare to be too high-profile, so he concentrated on cultivating. During this period, he absorbed the vitality of many fierce beasts and plants in the back mountain. His cultivation also stepped into the 1st grade martial master from the martial disciple realm. To be honest, the sect limited Dai Lu's development. Because of his special absorption power, he was destined to rely on absorbing external forces to improve. Cultivating step by step would only be very slow. Dai Lu also considered leaving. But when he thought that Jun Changshao would bring disciples to challenge him, he endured for a few months. Destroying my Spirit Spring sect and killing my cousin. With these two great enemies, if he didn't do anything and just left like this, wouldn't it be too cowardly? Dai Lu had been planning. He took out the crystal cores he obtained during this period of time and successfully bribed an elder to obtain a challenge quota. Jun Changshao. I want you to know that the current me is not the same as before. I heard that your Iron Bone is also divided into inner and outer disciples. I will fight with your inner disciple. Even if I can't kill him, I will let him experience what pain is. Brother Green Scarf decided. He wants to challenge an Iron Bone inner disciple as an outer disciple. After this, he will leave the Holy Spring sect. From then on, he will be a fish in the sea and a bird in the sky. As for who to challenge, let's wait until the competition starts. Of course, if the sect allows, he will definitely choose the strongest inner disciple. Not only can he defeat Jun Changshao, but he can also show off a bit. Brother Green Scarf, who broke through to the 1st grade martial master, was determined to win tomorrow. Because who am I? I am a devourer. He is an Iron Bone disciple, what qualifications does he have to compete with me? If he really wants to challenge the strongest inner disciple of the Iron Bone, excluding Lu Qianqian, then it will be Yi Xingqian. The Devourer vs the Rebirth of the Great Emperor, it seems quite interesting. The premise is that Brother Green Scarf must hold on, because this opponent is not as gentle as Li Qingyang and Xiao Ziji. He is very fierce. Kakik. Dai Lu covered his face and laughed strangely. Jun Changshao, you and your disciple are destined to be the stepping stones on my path to become a supreme expert. Sigh. May God bless you, our Brother Green Scarf. At the foot of the mountain. Jun Changshao shouted. The Holy Spring Sect's gatekeepers looked at him with disdain. This iron bone disciple is not high level. The sect leader is young, but he is quite arrogant. Humph, one of them said indifferently, Sect leader Jun, our Holy Spring Sect has been waiting for your arrival. Please go up the mountain. Jun Changshao flicked his sleeves and led his disciples up the mountain. Yi Xingchen walked up the stone steps with an ugly expression. Then, he unwillingly raised the magically modified speaker. Damn it! Why do I have to carry it all the time? Family head AI, City Lord Xia, and the others also hurried up after reporting their names. Looking at the Iron Bone Sect's disciple who went up the mountain, his aura was as firm and unyielding as ever. Challenging a fifth-rate sect is undoubtedly a hellish test. These Iron Bone disciples can still be so calm. How did sect leader Jun train them? Creak. The gate of the Holy Spring Sect was pushed open. Jun Changshao, wearing dazzling sunglasses, wearing a mink coat, and holding a cigar in his mouth, walked over to the accompaniment of the god of gamblers. In an instant, all the martial artists in the outer yard looked over. TSK, he is quite pretentious. When the competition starts tomorrow, the Holy Spring Sect will be merciful if he can leave standing. Everyone talked in disdain. But when Jun Changshao stood in the martial arts arena, 200 disciples lined up neatly behind him, proudly standing straight and releasing their aura. The expressions of the martial artists froze. These Iron Bone disciples had a strong aura and sharp eyes. As long as one was not short-sighted or blind, they would realize that this was definitely something that only advanced martial disciples had. Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Oh my god, an eighth-rate sect, wrong. Jun Changshao held a cigar between his fingers and flashed the certificate given to him by the certification center. He faintly said, if you have a pair of dog eyes like Alliance Master Qin, you might not be able to tell whether it's 8 or 7. He attacked with full force as soon as he arrived. Qin Haoren said angrily, Jun Changshao, you. Jun Changshao raised his middle finger and said indifferently, loser, you are not qualified to bark in front of me. He knew that this guy had come to the Holy Spring Sect before and must have made some dirty deals with them. He also knew that he must have brought the Alliance Master here to see him make a fool of himself. You are not happy with me, and I am not happy with you. I am dissing you, what's the point? Damn it. Qin Haoren was so angry that his eyes were about to pop out. He was so angry that his body was trembling, but he did not speak anymore. After all, he was here to see him make a fool of himself. He could not turn the tables. Schwa. Jun Changshao shook off his mink coat, and a disciple stepped forward to catch it. Sect leader Jun stroked his black hair with one hand and said, my Iron Bone Sect came to challenge them, but the Holy Spring Sect did not come out to greet them. Is this how a big sect treats its guests? Everyone's mouth twitched. As expected of the sect leader who dared to challenge the Holy Spring Sect. This was really crazy. Li Er. Shi Jingxian, who walked out from the inner yard, smiled and said, Sect leader Jun is so domineering. After seeing the light again, I must see what he looks like. As she spoke, she was already fantasizing in her heart. He must have big eyes, a sharp nose, and long ears. Yes. The sect leader Jun that palace master she imagined had already surpassed the level of a human. Strictly speaking, he could be classified as a monster. Chapter 281. All the cultivators saw Jun Changshao as they wished. He didn't have 3 heads and 6 arms, but 2 arms and 2 legs like everyone else. They didn't expect him to attack Alliance Master Qin as soon as he arrived. Many people knew that the two had a grudge. But he was still the leader of a sect. Even if there was a conflict, they couldn't just start a war of words as soon as they met, right? Especially when they heard that this was how a large sect treated their guests, they immediately realized that this seventh-rate sect leader was very arrogant. Yes. If he wasn't arrogant, he wouldn't be arrogant. Would he dare to bring a disciple to challenge the Sacred Spring sect? It was good to be young. They weren't afraid of anything, didn't care about anything, and courted death with all kinds of hot-bloodedness. The disdain in everyone's eyes when they looked at Jun Changshao became even more intense. Little brat. Acting cool would be struck by lightning. Swoosh. At this moment, an old man about 70 years old flew out of the main hall. He landed on the martial arts field and laughed loudly. Sect leader Jun, we are honored by your presence. Sorry for not coming out to meet you. This person's aura was strong. At first glance, one could tell that he was a high-level wuzong. Elder Jin, who is in charge of the internal affairs of the Sacred Spring sect. The patriarch of the Sacred Spring sect is in seclusion all year round, so Elder Jin is in charge of all affairs. He is giving Iron Bone enough face to appear in person. In my opinion, this is considered peaceful before resorting to force. Everyone discussed in low voices. They could catch a faint trace of displeasure in Elder Jin's eyes. A low-level sect acting so arrogantly in front of their own sect. If it were them, they would also find it difficult to tolerate. Jun Changshao said indifferently, Iron Bone, came from afar. Doesn't your Sacred Spring sect plan to arrange a place to rest? Really, too arrogant. The disciples of the Sacred Spring sect were all furious. But after all, they were from a large sect and could control their anger. Instead, they thought to themselves, when the challenge starts tomorrow, you won't be so arrogant. Elder Jin said, I have already arranged a room. Lin Feng, take sect leader Jun and Iron Bone disciples there. Yes. Qing Lin Feng walked out and made an inviting gesture. Sect head Jun, please follow me. Jun Changshao went to the inner yard under the watchful eyes of the crowd. The Iron Bone disciples followed behind him. Even though they were being scrutinized by a group of big shots, they were not afraid at all. After they left, the martial artists of various forces began to discuss in low voices. This Iron Bone disciple is not simple. Judging from their auras, they seem to be advanced martial disciples. For a seventh-rate sect to be able to do this, it's truly unbelievable. In my opinion, he might have taken some kind of pill to bluff, right? Hearing such doubts, City Lord Xie sneered in his heart. If you know that 2 elders from the certification headquarters in southwest Yangzhou gave Iron Bone a top 3 grade, you will understand whether it is a bluff or not. City Lord Xie really wanted to tell everyone to stop looking down on others. But because sect leader Jun wanted to keep a low profile, he could only bear with it painfully. The Sacred Spring sect still cared a lot about the style of the sect. They arranged for Iron Bone and the others to stay in several courtyards with beautiful environments. Have a good rest. Jun Changshao said, prepare for tomorrow's battle. Yes. After traveling for thousands of miles, the Iron Bone disciples were still a little tired. They all chose their rooms to stay in. Xiao Ziji did not rest. He sat cross-legged in the stone pavilion in the courtyard and practiced the body metamorphosis scripture, continuing to refine his body. Ever since he joined Iron Bone and obtained this divine mental cultivation method, he had developed a good habit of practicing anytime and anywhere. Suddenly, Xiao Ziji opened his eyes. He subconsciously looked at the entrance of the courtyard and saw a girl standing outside looking at him. Murong Xin. The inner yard of the Sacred Spring sect was not small. There was also a beautiful green area for the disciples to enjoy and relax after practicing. In the bamboo forest, Murong Xin pinched a bamboo leaf and said, "You seem to be stronger than last time. Is this why you are looking for me?" Xiao Ziji sat on a huge rock and said indifferently. He was surprised to see this woman in the Sacred Spring sect, but it was just a surprise. Murong Xin was silent for a while and said, "Your sect master is very reckless. Are you going to follow him? Xiao Ziji understood. She must think that I, Iron Bone, am courting death by challenging the Sacred Spring Sect. Xiao Zueji said indifferently, you don't need to worry about my affairs, Miss Mu Rong. Then, he got up and returned to the courtyard. Breaking off the engagement that year was like the last feather that broke the camel's back. It made him sink for 5 years. He really did not want to have too much contact with this woman. Watching Xiao Ziji leave, Murong Xian's eyes flashed with complicated emotions. Every time she saw the man she broke off the engagement with, she would blame herself. She blamed herself for the choices she made when she was young, causing him to bear the pain he should not bear. Judging from Murong Xian's psychological activities, she was not an arrogant woman. She just did the wrong thing at the wrong time. If they were still engaged. According to the customs of the Falling Star continent, they should have been married by now. There would be another perfect couple in the world. Unfortunately, they were not destined to be together. They missed a marriage. The next day, the weather was clear and there were no clouds in the sky. There was no need to look at the almanac. Because from today's weather, it was very suitable for a competition. Jun Changshao stood outside the martial arts field with his hands behind his back, facing the Sacred Spring Sect's main hall. Behind him, 200 disciples stood tall and straight, showing a sense of arrogance. Various forces had also rushed over and were all secretly amazed. What kind of confidence did this 7th-rate disciple have to be so fearless in front of a 5th-rate sect? Why? Because Iron Bone was unyielding. Xie Guankuan, Ai Shang and the others walked behind Jun Changshao tacitly. Song Mountain Sect's Elder Ma and Elder Wang also stood behind, showing their support for Iron Bone. No one was surprised. After all, Song Mountain Sect was in the Azure Sun County. It was reasonable for them to support the sects in the county. The positions of the various forces were closer to the main hall, which meant that they believed that the Sacred Spring Sect could win this challenge. Among them were Alliance Master Qin and the leaders of the Alliance. Especially when they looked at Jun Changshao with disdain and sneers. A race between a broken car and a sports car. As long as one had a normal brain, they would believe that the sports car could easily shake off the broken car by stepping on the gas pedal. Iron Bone was a broken car. Sacred Spring Sect was a superior sports car. Jun Changshao did not care about the support of the other forces. Because no matter how much they looked down on him, he was still strong. Sect Master Jun, standing opposite him, Elder Jin said, "How do you want to challenge?" Jun Changshao said, "Let's start with the outer disciples. First, we'll fight 30 to 40 rounds and determine the winner." Hearing this, everyone almost fell over. 30 to 40 rounds? This guy. Was he here to challenge or to participate in the sect competition? Jun Changshao also did not want to fight so many rounds. But this damn epic mission, he had to defeat 30 outer disciples of the Sacred Spring Sect to complete it. Chapter 282. Elder Jin's mouth twitched. Sect Master Jun, are you sure you want to waste time and fight so many matches? His Holy Spring Sect had 5 to 6,000 outer disciples. Not to mention 30 or 40 matches, they could even send someone for 300 or 400 matches. But fighting one match at a time would definitely waste time. Jun Changshao said, "Victory and defeat will be decided quickly, it won't take much time." TCH, everyone snorted. That was as if Iron Bone could end the battle quickly. Jun Changshao raised his hand. Schwa. Under everyone's gaze, He walked towards the training field. He was the first outer disciple to represent Iron Bone. To be honest, he was a little nervous. At this time, Lu Wancher shouted, "Brother He, do your best." He, who was a little nervous, clenched his fists and straightened his back when he heard Lu Wancher's cheers. "Sect Master, let me go first, Du will watch from behind. The first battle, even if I have to risk my life, I must win." Ta! Erhe stopped in the middle of the training field and shouted, "Iron Bone Sect disciple Zhang Jilin, please enlighten me." He shouted out a name that even he had almost forgotten. His voice hovered above the training field, revealing a proud aura. Before the battle, Jun Changshao said, "Your opponents may be strong, but as disciples of Iron Bone Sect, your morale cannot be weak." Erhe remembered it in his heart. When he shouted out his sect, shouted out his name, the blood in his body seemed to burn. "I am the first to go. I want to raise the morale of my fellow disciples. I want to win the first battle." The other disciples of Iron Bone also seemed to ignite the blood in their chests under his shout. "We came from so far away just to fight for our sect." Seeing that Iron Bone disciple so imposing, all the martial artists shook their heads. There was no denying it. This kid was not bad, but in front of a fifth-rate sect, it was not enough. Elder Jean waved his hand. An outer disciple of Holy Spring Sect walked up. "Holy Spring Sect, Lu Yanxiang." The disciple who was going to fight also announced his name. His aura was as strong as his name. "Start!" The referee shouted. Shua! Lu Yanxiang rushed over with a profound movement technique, immediately drawing the praises of the martial artists from all sides. This is the Sacred Spring Sect's unique movement technique, 9 steps. It's unbelievable that an outer sect disciple could comprehend it. Then, Brother Iron Bone, boom. While everyone was talking, Erhe gathered his strength in his fist and punched Lu Yanxiang in the face, sending him flying. Plop. He fell to the ground and fainted on the spot. With a single punch, the match was over. Caw. Everyone was silent. The expressions on the faces of the martial artists froze, and their eyes gradually widened. An outer sect disciple of the Sacred Spring Sect was killed by a single punch. Qin Haoran and the others, who were already prepared to see a joke, instantly withdrew the smiles on their faces. Their expressions were extremely ugly. Erhe was also stunned. The outer sect disciples of the Sacred Spring Sect were too weak. They couldn't even take a punch from him. It's not that he's weak, it's that you're too strong. Erhe had already reached the peak of martial disciple level and had been tempered in the forging room and the training tower. The strength of his punch was not comparable to that of an extreme-grade martial disciple, but it was still 20,000 jin. What did that mean? It was comparable to an ordinary grade 2 martial master. What about Lu Yanxiang? He was only an ordinary grade 8 martial disciple. How could he withstand such a powerful force? And this was a Sacred Spring Sect disciple. If it were an outer sect disciple of a 6th or 7th rate sect, he would have been killed by a single punch. Ding! Defeated 130 outer sect disciples of the Sacred Spring Sect. Hearing the notification, Jun Changshao cupped his hands and smiled. Thank you for letting me win. Disciple had killed his opponent and completed a mission goal. It was very satisfying. The martial artists were stunned for a long time. After all, Iron Bone defeated a Sacred Spring Sect disciple with a single punch. It was too unexpected. They understood. Iron Bone's strategy was to let their strongest disciple fight first. If they let their strongest disciple fight in the first round, would they still send anyone for the next 30 or 40 rounds? Alliance Master Qin and the Alliance Elders thought so in their hearts and couldn't help but sneer. Elder Jean furrowed his brows. He was a little careless in the first round and let Iron Bone win first. He would treat it as a friendly host. He didn't have to give Iron Bone any face in the following rounds. If a 5th-rate sect didn't go easy on a 7th-rate sect or two, they would definitely be gossiped about. Let's start the second round. Jun Changshao waved his hand and an outer sect disciple walked out. This person's name was Sun Shao. Because he had a group of monstrous senior brothers, he was considered invisible in Iron Bone. In fact, there were many invisible disciples. Because of the limited space, he couldn't explain it to the camera one by one. Otherwise, he could at least write 3 to 5 chapters. At this kind of climax, there would definitely be readers who would say, 30 to 40 outer sect disciples fighting, one chapter per person, the author can write another 30 to 40 chapters. I want to. But I won't give him a chance. This was because even someone as insignificant as Sun Shao could easily send his opponent flying once the battle began. Seeing the second Sacred Spring Sect disciple fall outside the martial arts practice field, the expressions of the martial art practitioners from various forces froze again. Damn it, another one was killed in seconds. Was the Sacred Spring Sect not serious? Or did Iron Bone continue to send strong outer sect disciples to fight? But that disciple named Sun Shao was only a 7th grade martial disciple. The Sacred Spring Sect's disciple was a 9th grade martial disciple. Why? Because Iron Bone's disciples were strong. You let me win. Jun Changshao cupped his hands and said. A trace of anger appeared between Elder Jin's brows. He immediately waved his hand and sent a peak martial disciple to fight. A year ago, Mo Shangfei was only an 8th grade martial disciple, but he could become an inner sect disciple of the Sacred Spring Sect because he had a high-grade spiritual root. This peak martial disciple only had a middle-grade spiritual root, so he could only be an outer sect disciple. There were many disciples with middle-grade spiritual roots in the Sacred Spring Sect. Although their realms were good, they could only be outer sect disciples because of their spiritual roots. Hey! Jun Changshao said, let's fight. Yes. He strode in, his eyes full of fighting spirit. Behind him, Lu Wanshi cheered for her fellow disciple as usual. After exchanging names, the battle officially started and then officially ended. Because Hei's strength was not inferior to Hei's, he sent the peak martial disciple flying with a rupturing fist. Decisive and not hesitant. In 3 matches, he was defeated in 3 moves. All the martial artists were deeply shocked by the strength of Iron Bone's disciples. Don't worry. The shock had just begun. Next, the 2 sides continued to fight. Although the Iron Bone's outer sect disciples were not as talented as the Sacred Spring Sect, their strength was at a high level. As long as they fought, they would win. In a short time, the 2 sides fought 20 rounds. Although there were more than 2 moves, they still could not reverse the fate of the Sacred Spring Sect's disciples. Ding! Defeated 2030 outer sect disciples of the Sacred Spring Sect. The system's voice sounded again. Jun Changshao shrugged and said, easy. These words were extremely pretentious. But all the martial artists were silent. 20 disciples fought and defeated 20 outer sect disciples of the Sacred Spring Sect. They were qualified to be pretentious. Chapter 283. Alliance Master Qin and the leaders of the alliance looked terrible. They were prepared to watch a joke from the beginning, but the Holy Spring Sect's consecutive defeats didn't give them a chance to laugh. This wasn't what they expected at all. As for the various forces that had previously mocked the Iron Bone Sect, their faces were flushed red. After all, if they sent their outer disciples to fight with the Holy Spring Sect, they would be lucky to win 3 out of 30 rounds. Master, standing in the distance, Lear's mouth twitched. Iron Bone won the 20th round. In her estimation, if the Sacred Spring Sect fought 30 to 40 rounds, they would definitely win 30 to 40 rounds. But in the end, it was the reverse of the situation. Shi Jingxian smiled. Master Jun's disciples are so strong. Old Ma. Wang Donglin's mouth twitched. These Iron Bone disciples are too fierce. They didn't lose any of the 20 rounds. Ma Yunten couldn't stay calm at this moment. After all, even if his sect fought with the Holy Spring Sect, there would be victories and losses. The challenge continued. Lin Jianghang and other disciples who joined earlier fought and won easily. In the past year, although their spiritual roots didn't change, they all had the strength of advanced martial disciples after various resources and body modifications. What did this mean? It meant that Iron Bone didn't have as many top disciples as the top sects, but their basic disciples were not inferior to them. Once all of them grew up, they would be terrifying. Elder Zhou of the certification headquarters was aware of this, which was why he gave the Iron Bone sect a top 3 evaluation. The strength of a sect wasn't determined by a few people, but by the overall strength. Molding pills, molding rooms, spiritual arrays, training towers, various resources, various martial techniques, these were the powerful assets of Iron Bone's basic disciples. What about the Holy Spring sect? Although it was a fifth-rate sect, its resources were limited and definitely wouldn't be shared with the outer disciples. If the outer disciples wanted to be valued, they had to work hard to be promoted to the inner disciples so that they could enjoy more resources. Which sect's disciple was more fortunate? That's right. It was Iron Bone. Although it was a new sect, although it was only a year old. But the resources Jun Changshao gave his disciples were many years ahead of this kind of sect. Today, I've come all the way here. If I don't give you a good beating, how can I be worthy of all the resources I've piled up? The outer sect disciples of the Sacred Spring sect were either suppressed in terms of realms or their ranks. Although there were occasionally some who could fight with their opponents for 20 or 30 rounds, they were still inevitably defeated. To be honest, it was a complete suppression. Boom! Another Iron Bone disciple sent an outer disciple of the Sacred Spring sect flying. The number of outer disciples defeated in the epic quest increased from 29 to 30. Ding! Disciple defeated an outer disciple of the Sacred Spring sect. Epic mission completion rate, 20%. Host receives 400 contribution points. Ding! Contribution points, 1605200. TSK. Last time, he got 200 points for 20%. This time, he got 400 points. Jun Changshao cupped his fists and said, Elder Jin, after 30 rounds, shall we end the outer disciples competition here? No. Elder Jin said solemnly, continue the battle. If he didn't win a single one of the 30 battles, what face would he have left? He had to continue fighting. Even if he couldn't win all of them, he had to win at least 10 rounds to save his face. The result? Sima Zhongda, Cui Bujian, Lin Jianghang and the other disciples fought one after another. With their powerful strength, they trampled the outer disciples of the Sacred Spring sect one by one. Previous chapter. Next chapter, boom. An opponent was kicked into the air by Li Tiantian. Then, he used the cloud steps to hang upside down in the air and directly blasted him 300 meters away. At this point, Iron Bone won the 50th round. Ding! Disciple defeated an outer disciple of the Sacred Spring sect 50-50, meeting the hidden criteria. Epic mission completion rate, 30%. Host receives 200 contribution points. Ding! Contribution points, 1805200. Jun Changshao was startled, then grinned, so, there are still 20 hidden victories. When Li Tiantian kicked his opponent out and landed on the ground, the expressions on the faces of the martial artists from the various sects were already numb. From the first round to the 50th round, it ended in less than 2 hours. The Sacred Spring sect was completely defeated. Who would have thought that a 5th-rate sect would be so badly beaten by a 7th-rate sect? Elder Jin's hands were trembling. If not for the presence of the various forces, his face would have turned sinister from anger. Ma Yunteng and Wang Donglin were silent. The strength of Iron Bone shocked them deeply. Junior sister. The senior sister standing next to Murong Xian said solemnly, this is too unbelievable. Her sect had the strength to sweep away the 5th-rate sections. After all, it was a 2nd-rate sect. But a 7th-rate sect did it so cleanly. If she didn't see it with her own eyes, she wouldn't dare to believe it. The Battle of the Outer Disciples. Iron Bone used their strength to ruthlessly slap the faces of the various forces. Fight again. Elder Jin said in a deep voice. Jun Changshao said, Elder Jin, my iron bone doesn't have as many people as your sacred spring sect. If we keep fighting like this, isn't it a bit of bullying? Originally, they planned to send 53 people, but the other party was unwilling to give up, so they could only let the cheering disciples go on stage. If they continued to fight, they would definitely not be able to compete with the thousands of disciples. How about this? Jun Changshao said, send the inner disciples to fight. The outer disciples had fought enough, and even the hidden mission was completed. The next step would definitely be to fight the inner disciples. After all, completing the epic mission was more important. Okay. Elder Jin agreed and raised his hand. A man wearing a green scarf walked onto the martial arts practice field. His head was lowered the entire time, and it was obvious that his body was trembling. A moment later, he raised his head and said with a grin, Jun Changshao, do you still remember me? Jun Changshao said in surprise, you are the green scarf man who teased my eldest disciple outside Qingyang City? The iron bone disciple was immediately dumbfounded. Oh my god. He dared to tease the cold big senior sister, his courage was commendable. Cut the crap. Dai Lu raised his hand, pointed at the group of iron bone inner disciples with strong auras, and said with a cold gaze, send your disciples to fight with me. Ha! Jun Changshao folded his arms and said, who do you want to fight? Humph. Dai Lu proudly said, send out the strongest, I want to beat him up and tell everyone here that the Sacred Spring Sect is not something that a trash sect like you can afford to offend. After the sect had lost 50 matches in a row, the green scarf brother realized that his chance had come, so he had to perform well in front of Elder Jin. Perhaps this battle would allow him to directly rise from the outer sect to the direct disciple position. At that time, he would have more resources and supplies, so he wouldn't have to consider going out to train. TSK TSK TSK. Jun Changshao, Jun Changshao. You and your disciples are indeed my, Dai Lu's, stepping stones on the path to becoming a supreme expert. The strongest? Jun Changshao began to consider. Yi Xingqian said coldly, sect leader, since he wants to find the strongest, this disciple is willing to fight and teach this arrogant green scarf man a lesson. These words caused the mouths of Li Qingyang, Xiao Ziji, and the others to twitch. Junior brother Yi, you are stronger than us, but as for the strongest inner sect disciple, without asking big senior sister, do you still have any face? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.